Welcome in, everyone. I have previously followed the case on Susan Lorincz. I think we've done a couple of videos already on this. And she is charged with the murder of Ajike Owens. Now, I wasn't planning on showing this, but I don't know. It seems like they're showing some jury selection in court today. They might be talking about motions. I don't know. And I'm going to trim out, and I'll trim out the stuff that's kind of. One thing that surprised me is you guys look at her. Holy Mother of Jesus. She has lost a ton of weight. She doesn't even look like the same person, but at the same time, she looks so aged. So let's see what's going on in the courtroom. Look at her, you guys. Holy manoli. Okay, again, it's a manslaughter trial. Let's see what they say. I can't believe how bad she looks. I'll show you a picture when she was arrested if you haven't seen her. And just to help you guys remember, this was all over the kids playing in her backyard. They lived in a freaking apartment complex. She did not want the children screaming and yelling and bothering her while she was working or what have you. Here it is right here. Let me put it up. So she was mean to the kids, and the mom finally, I think her and the mom had arguments in the past, but this one just blew up. She threw something at the kids, or she took the kid's iPad or something, Ajike Owens' child, and Ajike Owens was fed up. And she went over there and knocked on the door. And Susan shot her through the door of the apartment. She admits to doing it. This is her, you guys. Look at this photo of her on the left. This is Ajike on the right. Look at how she looked back then when she was arrested. This didn't happen that long ago. When was she arrested? Hang on. June. This happened in June of last year. In 1 year, she looks that different. That blows my mind. I know that's a blurry picture, but I just wanted to throw one up there really quick so you guys could get a visual of it. Let's fast forward to where something's happening here.
Appreciate you coming. What I'm going to do is read an instruction to you that's very important to us. So please listen carefully. To have a fair and lawful trial, there are rules that all jurors must follow. A basic rule is jurors must decide the case only on the evidence presented in the courtroom. You must not communicate with anyone, including friends and family members, about this case, the people and places involved, or your jury service. You must not disclose your thoughts about this case or ask for advice on how to decide this case. I want to stress, this rule means you must not use electronic devices or cell phones to communicate about this case, including posting information on the internet, emailing, or any other means. Do not send or accept any messages to or from anyone about this case or your jury service. In addition, your cell phone or electronic device must be turned completely off while you're in the courtroom. You must not do any research or look up any words, names, maps, or anything else that may have anything to do with this case. This includes reading newspapers, watching television, or using a computer, cell phone, the internet, any electronic device, or any other means to get information related to this case or the people and places involved in this case. This applies to whether you're in the courthouse, at home, or anywhere else. All of us are depending on you to follow these rules so there will be a fair and lawful resolution to this case. Unlike questions that you may be allowed to ask in court, which will be answered in court, in the presence of the judge and the parties. If you investigate, research, or make inquiries on your own outside the courtroom, the trial judge has no way to assure they are proper and relevant to the case. The parties likewise have no opportunity to dispute the accuracy of what you find or provide rebuttal evidence to it. That is contrary to our judicial system, which assures every party the right to ask questions about and rebut the evidence being considered in this courtroom and to present argument with respect to that evidence. Non-court inquiries and investigations unfairly and improperly prevent the parties from having that opportunity our judicial system promises. Any juror who violates these restrictions jeopardizes the fairness of these proceedings, and a mistrial could result that would require the entire trial process to start over. A mistrial is a tremendous expense and inconvenience to the parties, the court, and the taxpayers. If you violate these rules, you may be held in contempt of court and face sanctions, such as serving time in jail, paying a fine, or both. If you become aware of any violation of these instructions or any other instruction I give in this case, you must tell me by giving a note to the bailiff. So it's very important that all of us follow this rule, okay? We try cases the same way we have for over 200 years. All the evidence you need will be in this courtroom. If you have a cell phone with you, please take a moment to make sure your cell phone is off, okay? Please don't make the mistake of keeping it on, because if it goes off, then I'll know that you've already violated the rules. That's a mistake, okay? We're going to do it a little differently than we do some cases, because we're here in court. This case, I'll tell you, has had some pretrial publicity in the past. So the first thing we're going to do is make sure that if you have heard anything about this case, that you can set aside anything you've heard so that you can hear this case fairly without any sort of improper influence, okay? So I'm going to read to you a statement that explains this case to you. And if you need more explanation, you can let me know. And then what we're going to do is call up the first 16 people on my list. They've already been chosen for me by the clerk. And then we're just simply the first thing we do is ask whether or not you've heard anything about this case. And if you have, whether you can set aside anything you've heard, okay? Then I'm also going to see if serving on this jury will be a hardship for you. This trial is set to take place this week. It's not that long. We'll be done in 1 week. So we will not be going into next week, but we are here for this week, okay? So if you can listen carefully. On June 2nd, 2023, on Southwest 107th Lane in Ocala, the decedent, Ajike Owens, went to the front door of Susan Lorincz, the defendant's residence, to address a concern Ms. Owens had regarding Ms. Owens' children. As a result of this encounter, the defendant discharged her firearm. The projectile traveled through the door and struck Ms. Owens. Ms. Owens died as a result of this gunshot wound. So what I'm going to do is call the first 16 people, and I need them in precisely the order I call, okay? So please don't pass up the person like a base runner. It will stay in line. The first person I call is going to go to the back row here of the jury box on my left. So you'll go to this far left seat, then we'll sit from left to right, and then to the front, okay? The first person is Christopher Cook. Come on down, as they say.
I didn't know they gave out the jurors' names.
Landon Barnes.
Usually they sign them like a juror number, even when they're in jury selection.
Ajike Fry. If I mispronounce your name, let me know. Name pronunciation, not always my strongest suit. Kayla Reisher. Vonda Oleski. Erica Johnson. Manuel de la Cruz. Deborah Pugh.
They're all white. They're gonna have to have.
Jason Mountain.
You're gonna have to have a mix of Hispanic, black, and white. Because in this case, her neighbors, she had a lot of Hispanic and black neighbors. They can't just
Javon
have an
Clayton.
all-white juror. There's no way. Jury. There's no way.
Harry Rivera. Holly Thompson.
I say that because they're going to end up calling a bunch of different people,
Oliver Betts.
and the prosecution's going to want them to relate to these different people
Christy Christmas.
of all ethnics and races.
Allison Bannon. Okay. So I'm just going to go down the row, starting with Mr. Cook, Barnes, Pernice, and Miss Fry, the four of you. Have any of you, do any of you believe you've heard anything about this case?
No, sir.
Okay. If the answer is yes, please raise your hand. Okay. And that is Mr. Cook and Miss Fry. Is that correct? Okay. Mr. Barnes and Mr. Pernice, you haven't heard anything about it?
No.
Okay. Mr. Cook, do you have any personal knowledge of it, or is it just something you've read in the paper or heard talked about?
Read the paper.
Okay. Do you believe you can set aside anything you've read so that you can issue and render a true and accurate verdict in this case?
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Fry, do you have personal knowledge of the case, or is it something you may have read?
Read.
Okay. In the paper or okay. Do you believe that you can set aside anything you've read and render a true and accurate verdict in this case? Okay. I'm going to go down to Kayla Brisher, Vonda Oleski, Erica Johnson, and Manuel de la Cruz, four of you. Have any of you heard anything about this case? If so, please raise your hand. And that is that Ms. Johnson?
Yes.
Okay. The other three, have any of you heard anything about this case? Okay. Ms. Johnson, do you have any personal knowledge of the case, or just something you may have read?
Something I've read.
Okay. Do you believe that you can set aside what you have read and render a true and accurate verdict in this case?
Yes.
All right, thank you. I'll go down to the next row here. Deborah Pugh, Jason Mountain, Kayvon Clayton, Harry Rivera. The four of you. Have any of you four heard anything about this case? And if so, please raise your hand. And that is Ms. Pugh and Mr. Mountain, correct?
Yes.
All right. Ms. Pugh, do you have any personal knowledge of the case, or is it something you've read?
Personal.
You have personal knowledge about the case?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Mr. Mountain, is this something you've read, or is it personal knowledge?
No personal knowledge, just on the news.
Okay. Do you believe that you can set aside anything you have heard or read about this case and render a true verdict?
I believe I can.
Okay, thank you. Next, let's see here. By the way, is that Mr. Bass?
Yeah.
Okay. We'll come back to you, okay? Let me make sure I have the right people here now. Is it Mr. Clayton and Mr. Rivera? You haven't heard anything about this case, correct?
No, sir.
Okay. Ms. Thompson, Ms. Christmas, and Ms. Bannerman, and Mr. Dunning. Okay. The four of you, have any of you heard anything about this case? I do see one hand, and that is Ms. Bannerman. Is that correct? Have you read anything about the case?
Yeah, I've read it.
Okay. Are you able to set aside anything you've read or heard and render a true verdict in this case? Okay. Mr. Dunning, you haven't heard anything about this case? Okay. For all of you, is there anything that would keep you from being able to sit on a jury this week? Do you have some sort of important medical appointment? Do you have some sort of pre-planned flight out of Florida? Would it be a tremendous hardship economically for you to work here? And if so, please raise your, not to work here, but be on the jury. If so, please raise your hand. Okay? I'm going to go down the line. Mr. Risher?
Yes, I have a physical agility test with Duke Energy for a apprenticeship program
Okay.
this Thursday.
All right. Is that something that's regularly scheduled, or is that only one time?
It's a one-time.
Okay. All right. So we'll have to consider that.
He's going to get off.
Who else had their hand up? Ms. Oleski.
It's a financial hardship, contract labor, and if I don't work, I don't get paid.
Okay. What type of work do you do?
I do hair in retirement communities.
You do what?
I do hair and nails in retirement communities, memory care and assisted living. So when I'm not there, sometimes they don't even have their hair washed.
Okay. All right. We'll consider that as well. Okay.
She's off.
Anyone else had their hand up? All the way, Mr. De La Cruz.
Because I don't speak English, understand.
Okay. Where do you work, Mr. De La Cruz?
Uber Eats delivery.
Okay. All right. We'll continue. You don't feel like you speak English very well? Okay. Thank you. Ms. Pugh, you had your hand up?
Yes, sir. I have a pretty planned vacation this weekend.
This weekend?
Yes,
Like on Saturday?
Friday, Saturday, Sunday,
Where are you going?
St. Pete.
St. Pete? So you're driving?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have like hotel reservations or something like that? Is that for a Friday night?
Yes.
Okay. And we may very well be done by then,
Perfect.
but we'll take that into consideration. Okay. Anyone else? All right.
Nobody wants to be on the jury.
I'm going to have the attorneys approach me for 1 second.
I don't blame them. I wouldn't either.
All right, thank you. What I'm going to do, Ms. Pugh, you felt like you had personal knowledge of this case, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
I'm going to have you go back down to the jury assembly room, see if there's a case where you don't have personal knowledge. And Mr. De La Cruz, I'll have you go back down to the jury assembly room as well, okay? See if there's another case you can work on. All right, so all the rest of you, you're going to move to this side of the courtroom. All of you get up, move in these chairs over here, the blue chairs, not the far back, but the blue chairs, okay?
She looks so rough. Oof. I mean, if I had never seen anything or heard anything about this woman, and then they're going to come in and testify the way she was, they're going to look at her and go, oh, yeah, I see that. You guys, if you're not familiar with this case, I've done a couple of videos on it, so you might want to go back and check out the playlist. before you start watching the trial with us.
All right, I'm gonna call another group of people up. We're gonna do the exact same thing with those people. Okay, everyone's gonna be called, just so you know. So the first 4 people: Oliver Bass, Sherry Pruitt, Gail Steiner, Terry Mays. Have any of you 4 heard anything about this case? And if so, please raise your hand. I see that takes us to, is it Sherry Pruitt and Gail Steiner? Okay. Ms. Pruitt, do you have personal information about the case? Just something you've read?
Yeah.
Do you feel like you can set aside anything you read and have a lawful verdict in this case? Yes?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I know. Gail Steiner, do you have personal information about the case?
No.
Or just something you've read?
In the
Yeah.
news, I've heard in the news.
Okay. Do you feel like you can set aside anything you've read and issue a lawful verdict in this case?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
She's like, girl, I watched YouTube. I've been seeing all
Laura
this
Ewing,
stuff.
Christopher Little, Frederick Burney, Karen Peterson. Have any of you heard anything about this case? I see 3 people here. Ms. Ewing, you've heard about the case.
In the news.
Do you have any personal knowledge of the case? Do you think you can set aside anything you've heard and render a lawful verdict?
Yes.
Okay. Christopher Little,
In the news.
just no personal knowledge?
No personal knowledge.
You think you can set aside anything you've read and render a lawful verdict?
Yes.
Okay. Frederick Burney,
In the news, no personal knowledge.
you feel like you can set that aside and render a lawful verdict in this case?
Yes.
Okay. And Ms. Peterson, you hadn't heard about
I haven't watched the news.
it. All right. Probably happier than all of us.
Yes.
The next 4.
She said
Pamela
she doesn't
Williams,
watch the
Renee
news.
Ruiz, Michael Curry, Wilson Centron. Have any of you heard anything about this case? The first person I see is, are you Pamela Williams?
I'm always here.
Trying to see. Do you have any personal knowledge about the case or something you've read?
No personal knowledge, just the news.
Do you feel like you can set that aside and render a lawful verdict?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Who else had their hand up? Is that Wilson Centron?
Yes, sir.
Any personal knowledge about the case?
No, sir, just the news.
Do you feel like you can set that aside and render a lawful verdict?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Next 4. Darby Marshall, Hazel Holmes, Namissa Ransola, Robert Carney. Have any of you heard anything about this case? And the first person I see is Darby Marshall. Do you have personal knowledge about the case? Just things you've heard. Do you feel like you can set that aside and render a lawful verdict? Okay. I think Hazel Holmes, did you raise your hand? Do you have any personal knowledge about the case?
No, just in the news.
Do you feel like you can set that aside and render a lawful verdict? I believe, Ms. Ransola, you don't know anything, is that correct? Robert Carney, does he have any personal knowledge of the case?
Just like seen and heard on TV.
Okay, do you feel like you can set that aside and render a lawful verdict?
Yes.
Okay. The trial is set for this week. We should be finishing either Thursday or early Friday. Do any of you have any hardships, travel, economic hardship that would keep you from sitting on this jury? If you do, please raise your hand. Mr. Centron?
Yes, sir. I just want to say I'm a school teacher,
Right.
so already missing the first day of school today, so
Right.
missing a full week would be pretty impactful in the classroom,
Okay.
especially in the first week, so I just wanted to.
But you'll get
let
paid
that
either
be
way.
known. Huh?
You get paid either way.
I do, but I'd rather have a good behavior class.
I know.
Just wanted to be let them.
We'll take that into consideration. Thank you. All right. So I'm gonna have all of these people move to the side of here. Amy Romanchuk. Thank you. Do any of you have a hardship or think that you feel like you wouldn't be able to sit here? And that. If you have a hardship, I know you've already raised your hand, and you are Ms. Catherine Rodriguez Lopez. What's the hardship?
I'm in the process of learning the language. So
English?
yeah, I'm not feeling
Okay.
We'll bilingual.
All right. Anyone else? I've got you all. Anyone else feel like they have a hardship? I know, I've already questioned you about something. You are Miss Elbon? You're fine, okay? Was another hardship person? All right, thank you. I'll let you go on now.
Sir.
They're all hardship.
I'll have you guys, you want me to question them? I'm gonna let you guys question them. Because you guys are the ones who want additional information.
I mean, if this is the way they're going to run the trial, that's quick. I'm impressed with how quickly they're doing this. I'm trimming a lot of this, but still. Jury selection in the first day. Boom. Start the trial on Tuesday. Be done with it by Thursday. Sweet. Well, not if you're Susan Lorincz, but it'll be
So
fair.
just have a seat down in the front. I'll ask some preliminary questions. If you guys have additional questions you want to ask. Mr. Cook, you indicated you had heard something about the case.
Yes.
What can you tell us what you've heard about the case?
Just that there was a shooting. It's that was the deal.
Okay.
That's kind of what I did hear about.
Okay. Have you formed any opinion about what went on out there? All right. Do you have any memory of specifics that were mentioned in the news?
Just, I believe, somebody shut their door.
Okay. Any of you have any additional questions you want to ask?
No, Your Honor. Is there anything about what you heard in regard to what you heard in the news that would make you feel one way or the other that person was guilty or not guilty of the crime or guilty of anything? I don't know if you have any questions.
All right. Thank you, sir. You can go out. Next person.
Ms. Fry.
Fry. Okay, bring it in.
Fry. Fry, last name Fry.
Let me try to do this before I figure out. Tell them. We can't make a decision on that. So, all right, Ms. Bryant, you had indicated you had heard something about the case. Can you tell us what you've heard about this case? All right. Okay. Did you form any opinion about what happened in the case, or do you remember any specifics of the case? Okay. All right. Any additional questions you want to ask?
No, sir.
Except for that it happened in the Marion County area, there's nothing else that you remember? No, just based on what you read on the app, is there anything that makes you believe that Ms. Lawrence is either guilty or not guilty of anything? I'm sorry? The person who shot them, you said. Okay, thank you.
You're shaking your head, but the answer is no?
No.
Okay, thank you. All right, thank you. Next person.
Ms. Johnson.
Thank you. Erica Johnson.
Turn your microphone around so we can hear you, Mr. Defense Attorney. I hope I'm not too loud in this. I apologize if I am, y'all. Turn my volume down. I get excited and I talk loud. I apologize.
Well, Mr. Just on the seat up here. Thank you. Ms. Johnson, you had indicated that you heard something about this case. Can you tell us what you know about the case?
From watching it on the news.
All right. But what do you remember about the case?
That it was I guess a neighborhood dispute. And AJ came to her neighbor's door, to confront her about, I guess, what the neighbor said to her children. And, the neighbor feared for her life, yes, and shot through the door,
Okay.
and AJ was killed.
All right. So, do you feel like you can set aside anything you've heard and render a fair verdict in this case?
Yes, I mean,
All right. And you obviously have some knowledge of the basic facts. Is that correct?
yeah.
All right. Can you set aside any of the facts you've heard from the news and then only find facts based on what comes in court?
Absolutely.
Okay. Any additional questions you want to ask?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Carranza?
It sounds like you know a reasonable amount in regard to the factual scenario. Is knowing that, will that in any way influence you, beginning here, one way or the other, whether that person is guilty or not guilty of any crime?
No,
At all?
no.
I don't have any other questions, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Next person.
Mr. Mountain?
Mountain?
Mountain, yes, sir.
Thank you.
I think if I was the defense attorney, I would have gone after her harder. Tried to get her off the jury.
Sir, just have a seat. One of the two chairs up here. And we called you back because you indicated you had some knowledge of the case.
Yes, sir.
Can you tell us what you know about the case?
Just know that I guess who would be the defendant that discharged a firearm through a door, striking the person on the other side. That's all I know.
Okay. Do you feel like you can set aside any facts you've heard from the news and render a verdict based only on the facts as you've determined them from what happens in court?
Facts, yes.
Okay. Do you have an opinion about the case at all?
Yes, I do.
Can you tell us what that is?
I do not discharge a firearm. You can't see me shooting at.
Okay. Anyone have any additional questions they want to ask?
Would you be able to listen to the facts that are brought out in this courtroom and listen to the law and make a decision in this case if selected as a juror based just on those facts and the law? Would you be able to set aside any personal opinions that you may have and follow the facts and follow the law in making your decisions?
I can't do that.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Mountain, when you told the judge about your beliefs in regard to shooting someone through the door, it sounds like that's a belief that you have. It's very strong faith. And when you read about the case, did you automatically think that when you read it?
Yes.
Okay. Do you believe, knowing that you're going to do your absolute best to follow the law, knowing that the law is going to be read to you and you're going to do everything you can to follow the law, do you believe that strong belief that you have would influence you in regard to how you see this case?
Personal influence, yes.
Sorry, say that?
Personal influence, yes.
Yes, it would, that strong belief that you have would personally influence you the way you look at this case.
Make sure I'm clear. I have an ability to tell the difference between what my job is to listen to facts. My personal opinion can always be swayed. So I don't know all the facts in this case.
Yes, sir.
I got 15 seconds of
A snippet on the
on a radio report, so I do have my personal opinions, but also can do my job.
Okay. Do you believe that that strong belief that you have would cause you to perhaps not follow the law?
No.
I have any other questions.
Thank you, sir.
I-
Thank you.
I like him for a juror. He sounds even keel, like he's open to hearing all the facts.
Good morning. We brought you back as you indicated you had some knowledge of the case. Can you tell us what you know about the case?
Just what I've read and whatnot, I am aware that the woman got shot behind the door. I'm aware of that, and what I read about the lady having problems with her kids.
Okay. Do you feel like any facts you know, you could set that aside and reach a verdict based on the facts as they're presented in the courtroom?
Yeah.
Okay.
I just.
Yes, ma'am.
Is it death penalty case?
It is not, no.
I wouldn't want to do that.
It is not a death penalty case. Okay. Anyone have any additional questions you want to ask?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you. You mentioned something about having issues with the kids. What did you hear about that in regard to the issue with the kids?
I just heard that, well, in the news, they mentioned that the woman that shot the lady was always arguing with the kids being on her property. I read that.
Anything else, any other details in regard to that issue with the kids?
No, just what I read.
Based on what you heard on the news, do you believe that what you know thus far will influence you in any way, shape, or form how you see this case in regard to the guilt, the innocence, or the guilt of Ms. Lawrence, the person who's charged with this crime? I don't have any other questions, Joe.
Thank you. Back outside. Thank you. Who's next? Well, let me bring in Mr. Bass. Bring in Oliver Bass. Mr. Bass, have a seat over here. Yes, sir. I think that you missed when I read the statement of what this case was about. I'm just going to read to you a statement of what the case is about, and you let us know if you know anything about it, okay? You understand? Okay. The statement of facts. On June 2nd, 2023, on Southwest 107th Lane in Ocala, the decedent, Ajike Owens, went to the front door of Susan Lorincz, the defendant's residence, to address a concern Ms. Owens had regarding Ms. Owens' children. As a result of this encounter, the defendant discharged her firearm. The projectile traveled through the door and struck Ms. Owens. Ms. Owens died as a result of this gunshot wound. Mr. Bass, do you believe that you know anything about this case? Okay. Anyone have any additional questions for him?
No, sir.
All right, thank you. Back out. Thank you. Who's next?
Ms. Pruitt?
Bring up Ms. Pruitt. Up to the chair, sorry. I probably should have told you that. Ms. Pruitt, we brought you back in here because you believe you have some knowledge of the case. Is that correct?
Sir.
Can you tell us what you know about the case?
Just everything I've read online. I mean, online and news, whatever, and I saw it, but it's there.
Have you formed any opinion about the case?
No, not really. I work in correctional healthcare. And
You-
so I
you work
don't
where?
judge anybody
You work where?
in correctional healthcare.
The correctional house? What is it?
Correctional healthcare.
Oh, correctional healthcare.
At the prisons.
You work in the prison? Okay. So I think I interrupted you. You said you would not judge anybody? Okay. Any additional questions you want to ask?
What specific facts have you heard about this case?
When it first happened, I actually was in a different state visiting, and they're the ones that brought it up. They saw it. Just in regards to an ongoing dispute between, a mother and her children and a neighbor.
Do you have any details of that dispute or
No.
anything? Just generalities?
Yeah, it was just generalized. It's all included.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Ma'am, any preconceived opinions from what you know in regard to the guilt or innocence of Ms. Lawrence?
No, I really didn't delve into it any deeper. It's not.
I don't have any other questions, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Go back outside. Steiner, Gail Steiner, thank you.
That must be the family and the attorney that's going to end up suing her, or possibly the apartment complex. The way he's taking notes, it seems like he might be an attorney for the family.
Up to the front, these two seats up here. Yes, ma'am. Ms. Steiner, we brought you back in because you said you had some knowledge of the case. Can you tell us what you know about this case?
I just remember when it first happened, hearing about it on the news. I couldn't really even tell you specifics of it.
Okay. Do you feel like you can set aside anything you've heard in the news and render a verdict based on the evidence that's actually presented in the case?
Yes, sir.
Have you formed any opinion about what went on out there?
No,
All right.
No questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Carranza?
Ma'am, do you remember when you first heard the news and what was going on, did your initial reaction say, no, that person must be guilty, must be innocent, anything like that?
I don't remember. Like I said, I remember hearing about it. My husband and I kind of said something to each other, but I honestly don't remember the specifics of it.
And what was it that you and your husband said to each other?
So I go, wow, I think. And that's honestly all I remember.
Okay. I don't have any questions.
Thank you, ma'am. That's it for right now. Who's next?
Ms. Ewing?
Laura Ewing. Can you tell us what you remember about the case?
Just really basic, just of what actually happened,
Okay.
about the,
Okay. Anything specifically you remember? You feel like you can set aside anything you've heard and render a verdict just based on the evidence that's actually here in the courtroom? Okay.
I'm more worried because I'm a pharmacy manager at Walgreens, and I don't know if they're gonna be able to find anybody to cover me,
Okay.
and I'm afraid I'm gonna get fired.
They'll fire you for that?
I don't know, I'm just so worried about it.
It's against the law to fire you over
I know.
jury duty. I wouldn't know if Walgreens would want to take on that sort of issue. But nevertheless, we'll consider that.
It's just a stressful time right now.
Okay. We're gonna, I'm just getting the very basic stuff out right now. Mr. Buck, anything you want to add?
No, sir.
Any feelings one way or the other regarding this case, whether someone is guilty or not guilty of a crime, anything like that? I don't have any other questions. Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Next is Ms. Williams.
Ms. Williams, we brought you back in here because you said you had some knowledge of the case. Can you tell us what you know about this case?
Okay, in the beginning, when it first aired, so they said the children was running the video over it, and she was upset. She got upset, so the mom went over to, I guess, discuss what had taken place,
Mhm.
and she shot her through the door.
Okay. Have you formed any sort of opinion on the facts of the case or whether someone should be held guilty for this or not? Right. But have you decided that someone's already committed a crime?
No, just based on what I saw. So, I haven't decided. I'm
Okay.
just telling you what I saw.
No, I appreciate that. Do you feel like you can set aside anything you've read about the case and render a verdict based on just the evidence you hear?
The clarity of the case, sure.
Right, okay. Mr. Buck, do you have any additional question on that?
No, sir.
Mr. Carranza?
At this point, considering what you know regarding the case, do you have an opinion regarding the issue? Because it sounds a little bit like you may do. Listen, there are no.
Hold on, let her answer.
Yes, sir.
Do I have an opinion? Based on what I saw, somewhat, yes.
And what is
To
that?
be honest, my opinion,
Yes, sir.
well, if what they're telling or has told is true, I think it was wrong. for a mom to just go and want to discuss what had taken place with her children, and you don't even discuss it with her, you just shoot through the door, so, yeah, I understand.
Okay,
Thank you.
okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, she struck.
Next.
She thought it was rude.
No, that was Ms. Williams. right?
Yes.
So we brought you back in because you indicated you had some knowledge of the case. Can you tell us what you know about the case?
That an altercation happened and, I don't remember their names, but the one lady shot through the door and hit the other one and, killed her.
Have you formed any sort of opinion about the facts of the case?
No, I haven't.
Can you set aside anything you've heard and render a verdict based solely on the evidence you receive in the courtroom?
Yes.
All right. Any questions?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Crosby?
Thank you, Your Honor. Considering what you've heard about the case, do you have any opinions regarding the guilt or innocence of the individual that shot the door?
No, because I don't know what led to it, what made her think she threw the door. I don't know. The one lady could have done something with, I don't know. I don't know what brought them to that point.
Okay. No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you, sir.
They'll keep him.
Mr. Burton, Your Honor.
Frederick Burney. Called you back in, Mr. Burney, because you indicated you had some knowledge of the case.
Yes.
Can you tell us what you know about the case?
I'm aware that the lady went to the door. The other lady in the house shot through the door. And told her kids or something like that. And,
Okay. Do you feel like you can set aside any of the facts you may have heard and render a verdict based on what happens in court?
well, to be honest, no.
Okay.
Because the door was closed, I had an issue with that, and I didn't bring up the fact when I was a juvenile, I was involved in a situation as a criminal.
Okay. What was the
And
situation?
it was an armed robbery.
All right.
I was 15, I was still considered a juvenile. They sent me to the youth service board, which sent me straight home, because I was getting married, I had a kid at 15. But I didn't know if that was gonna be an issue,
Okay.
so.
Well, I appreciate
I
you
was a
being honest.
juvenile then, so.
No,
I really.
I appreciate that. I appreciate your honesty on that. Have you formed an opinion about this situation? Sounds like you have some sort of worries about that situation.
I don't know everything, so I still have an issue. My only thing that I'm already leaning towards the fact that the person that shot the gun is more responsible for that murder than I'm leaning towards that already, just because the door was shut. So I don't know if I can really be open-minded about this.
Oh, I appreciate that. Do you have any additional questions?
Since at this point you only know really minimal facts about the case, would you agree?
Just what I've seen on the movies over and over.
Okay. Would you be able to withhold judgment in this case until you hear all the facts and circumstances to explain all the details and maybe why this happened, how it happened, all those things?
Totally.
Okay.
Yes.
Even if you formed an opinion at this point, would you be listening to evidence and make a decision based just on the evidence and facts, putting your personal opinion aside that you have now based on limited information?
Oh, yes.
Thank you, sir.
You mentioned, I think at the beginning, that the door being closed was a big issue for you when you heard about it. Yes, sir. And I think you mentioned that you've heard it in the news over and over again.
Yes.
Do you believe that the big issue that you have in regard to the door being closed, that I know you would try your absolute best to follow the law, et cetera, but that would influence you to think the person is guilty? of manslaughter.
Of manslaughter?
Guilty of any crime at all.
No, I would have to know all the evidence and see what brought it all to that circumstance, or what happened. Was there a threat before? Where the person was in fear of their life no matter what? Was she threatened before? I don't know if that has happened. I mean, that is possible, but those are things that I would look at and listen to and work with the jury on it.
Okay. I don't have any questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. All right, thank you, sir. We can go back outside.
Mr. Cintron?
She doesn't have a leg to stand on in this trial. I mean, the facts are the facts. There's so many witnesses. And there's a huge history of this woman being ridiculous about children playing around the complex. The question is do they think that AJ was being scary enough, I guess, for her to shoot through the door?
We brought you back in because you said you had some knowledge of this case. Can you tell us what you know about the case?
Just that there was a shooting at a home, ended up with someone dying, possible home invasion on all contact.
Okay.
I didn't really read much of it, just
All right.
the headline.
Can you set aside any sort of thing you've read and render a verdict only on what you hear in the courtroom?
Yes.
Have you formed any sort of opinion as to what happened out there that day? All right. Anything else you want to ask?
Do you know any more details about the case beyond what you had just mentioned?
No, sir.
Okay. And you mentioned the term home invasion. Was that your term, or did somebody tell you that, or did you hear that in the news?
That's just like my conclusion of it,
Okay.
of what I've read. Again, it just came up on my
Sure.
scrolling through it.
Thank you, sir.
I don't have any questions, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Ms. Marshall, Your Honor?
Is that Darby Marshall?
Susan Lorincz also made a lot of racial slurs that I'm sure will come out in court that are not going to make her look like a nice person at all. It's really, to me, I don't know. If I had heard anything about this case, I don't know if I would be able to be a juror, because everything you saw in the news just really paints her as a bad person.
Marshall Hennessy is here.
And she probably is a bad person, let's face it.
We brought you back in because you indicated you had some knowledge of the case. Can you tell us what you know about the case? Okay. Have you formed any sort of opinion as to what went on? What type of sort of opinion have you formed?
From what I've heard, like on news articles and stuff, is that they didn't have like a good relationship for many years. So that she might have had with like malice.
Okay. Do you feel like you can set aside anything you may have learned and render a verdict just based on the facts of the case as you hear them?
After thinking about it, I'm not entirely sure.
Okay. Mr. Buxton, do you have any additional questions?
No, sir.
Mr. Carranza?
No questions, Your Honor.
All right, thank you.
I would have gone after her if I was the defense.
Next is Ms. Holmes.
But maybe if they state that they're not sure if they can be biased, they're automatically taken off. I don't know. I'm still new to watching trials. I mean, I've been doing it for about 2 years now, but I still feel so new to it.
Ma'am, have a seat up here. Ma'am, we brought you back in because you indicated you had heard something about this case.
That's what I heard on the news.
Okay. Have you formed any opinion as to what went on? Can you set aside anything you may have heard and render a verdict just based on what you hear and evidence? Okay. Mr. Buxton, any questions?
What details have you heard about the case?
Kids playing, and then when the mother gets shot.
Anything beyond that? Thank you, ma'am.
From what you heard about the news, any opinion regarding the guilt or innocence of the individual? None at all? No further questions, Joe.
Thank you very much, man. You can go outside.
Mr. Carter, you're on.
Mr. Carney? Okay.
Mr. Carney is my neighbor, Your Honor. Not a direct neighbor, but he lives in the same community and he knows me, so I don't know. if you want to
Okay.
Deal with that now.
We'll deal with it now.
Strike him.
What kind of information is he at? Mr. Buxton?
Might be good for you. I see Mr. Carney up the 2 seats up there. Thank you. Mr. Carney, we brought you back in because you have heard something about the case.
That's what the news,
Right. Can you tell us what you know about the case?
all I heard, I remember hearing on the news was, there were children involved, and a lady came over to say something about the kids were misbehaving or something, and knocked on the door and got shot.
Okay. Have you formed any sort of opinion on what went on out there?
So I know nothing about it and what that was said on TV.
Can you set aside anything you may have heard from the past and render a decision just based on what you hear from the evidence in the case? Okay. It's my understanding that you may know Mr. Buxman. You guys live in the same community?
Yes.
Okay. Anything about your knowledge of him that would interfere with your ability to sit as a juror in the case?
And I'm sure not until render a decision based on the factual evidence presented to me.
Okay. Mr. Buxman, have any additional question I want to ask?
We live in the same community, correct? Do we socialize at all, like go to each other's houses, have dinner with each other, things like that?
No.
Ever gone out socially to a restaurant or an event together?
No, I do, no.
It'll make you pay, so no, you may not.
I need to strike
Is our
him.
relationship primarily based on homeowners association issues and things that happen in the community that need to be fixed?
Yes.
Thanks.
From what you heard in the news, any opinion that you have regarding the guilt or innocence of the person who shot?
No, there's no actual evidence that made me think one way or the other.
How long have you been Mr. Buxton's neighbor?
I moved in May of 2020, so 4 years.
And you guys deal with a lot of homeowners association issues like that?
We don't have that many people in there, so it's not that active, but just a few things with gates and what have you, but we don't have hardly any meetings.
How does it keep his yard? Not playing.
There's one in there that doesn't, but
Not right, the issue you're doing. All right, thank you. No further questions, John.
Thank you, sir. You go back outside.
Small
Next
community.
is Mr. Paisley from the last one.
Okay.
If I were the defense, I would not want him to be kept. And I think the judge wouldn't have a problem with that.
Either one. Paisley, we brought you back in because you said you had heard something about the case.
Yes.
Can you tell us what you know about the case?
For the most part, nothing much more than what you read to us.
Okay.
That a woman was shot through a door. What I remember, it's been several months since I read anything about it.
Have you formed any sort of opinion as to what went on?
Yes, sir.
You feel like you can set aside anything you've read and render an opinion just based on the facts that you hear here?
Yes, sir.
Buxton?
No questions, Ron.
Ron?
Any opinion regarding the guilt or innocence of the person who shot through the door?
Yes, sir.
No further questions, John.
Go back outside. Thank you. Anyone else?
And last John is Miss Romanchuk.
All right. Amy Romanchuk. Have a seat there, man. Thank you. And we brought you back in here because you at least know something about the case. Is that correct? Can you tell us what you know?
Just that there was a shooting on my side of town. Other than that, I don't watch the news. I read, my husband has it on.
Okay. Have you read anything about the case?
No.
Do you have any sort of opinion as to what went on?
No.
Can you set aside anything you've heard and render a verdict just based on the evidence you hear here? Mr. Buxman, anything?
No, sir.
Ronzo?
No question, sir.
I know you got back outside, okay? Get those ready. All right, so the jurors are still outside. I'm gonna go through and see if there's anyone out of what we've read here and what we know so far that either side believes should be removed for cause. Anyone can go in any order.
Your Honor, Mr. Mountain, I believe he said he can't set aside the discharge of firearms. It's bothered him since he heard about it.
Okay. Any objection from the state?
I believe he indicated, I don't remember him saying he couldn't set that aside. I could be wrong. I remember him saying that was a concern, that he would listen to all the evidence and weigh all the facts in the law and make a decision based on that. And he's formed no fixed opinions at this point.
Yeah, he was a little bit back and forth, but he did say his belief would influence him. And then he had a strong belief that you don't fire if you can't see somebody. So that's the actual issue and most important issue in the case. So I do have a reasonable doubt as to whether he would be good or
Yes, sir.
an impartial juror in this case, so I will strike him for cause. Anyone else?
Ms. Williams, Your Honor?
No objection.
That objection, Ms. Williams, restricted for cause. Anybody else?
Ms. Marshall?
No objection.
Second. Ms. Marshall will be stricken for cause. Anybody else?
No, Your Honor.
What about hardship? We had
Hardships.
a couple people, Mr. Risher and Ms. Oleski, claimed economic hardship.
I have no issue with letting him go for hardship.
State. I'm just bringing it up.
Did you say this Olszewski?
Those are the two mentioned in economic hardship.
No objection for Mr. Risher. And no objection, Mr. Oshelsky, excuse me.
Okay. No real definition of hardship, but and then, only other person I marked with some potential issues is Mr. Bernie. Everyone's okay with Mr. Bernie?
Carney?
Bernie.
Your Honor, there were,
I'm just throwing, if they're okay with you, they're okay with me. I was the only one I had marked with some issues.
he did say, Your Honor, because the door was closed, he has a problem with that. I think there's a reasonable doubt whether he could be impartial or not at this point because of that scene.
Judge, we told him the statement of facts that was shot through a door.
You know,
I think he indicated again that he would be, he knows no other facts or no other details and has not formed any opinion and would listen to all the facts and circumstances before rendering a verdict, or before making an opinion.
my concern is that he said he was leaning towards the fact that person shot down to the door was responsible. The door shut. That's the words I had. Leaning on one side or another prior to the case is cause.
Yes, sir.
Are you moving, Mr. Cronzo, to have him removed for cause?
Yes, sir.
So I'll grant the motion because he said he's leaning prior to the presentation of evidence. Mr. Bernie. So where does that, let me see how many we have. I believe it was 1, 2, 3, 4. I have us down still on the list. Cook, Barnes, Kearney's, Fry, 4. Johnson, 5. Clayton, Rivera, Thompson, Bass, Christman, Bannerman, Manning, Pruitt, Steiner, Mays. Ewing, Little, Peterson, Ruiz, Curry, Cintron, Holmes, Ransola, Carney, Paisley, Romanchuk, Paradis, and Schrader. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Those of you that you're calling back in, Judge?
Okay, according to my research, manslaughter is not a capital case in Florida. And based upon that, I believe they only need 6 jurors and 1 alternate for this case.
So we have 28 left. So those 28 are still valid. At least those who have, be on the jury. How many more do you want us to call? Bring in, I gotta ask for 40. I can bring in all 40. I can bring in less than 40. Depends how many you want to go through. Figure if it works out about the same, you'd end up with 50-something jurors if it works out about the same.
40, do you? Yeah. I don't think we need all 40, Your Honor.
You want to do like 30 more? Or
Sure.
Groups. So let's bring 30 more.
So you want 30 now, not 40?
30. Just tell them the last 10. Don't bring. Figure it's easier to take less than more. So obviously we haven't even begun.
So you're ready for them now?
Just 1 second. Tell them to get them all together.
Yes.
But don't go there yet. I'm gonna take we'll have a short break. What I'm gonna do is bring up the people. Yes, do you need to use the restroom? We'll do that now. Okay, let's do that now. I'm gonna tell you what we're gonna, go ahead. I'm just gonna tell them we're gonna bring everyone in. I'm gonna read the names of the people who are not on the jury and then we'll go downstairs. Okay? The people who are on the jury, who are remaining, will remain over here. I'm gonna bring them in. We're gonna sit them all over here. Everyone else gonna go downstairs. The new 30 will sit over there. We'll do that in 2 groups of 15, even it out. Okay. And then the order will remain the same. So this is the first group. When we go back, we'll be picking out a group of 18, and the order will be the same. Okay. So, like everyone on here will be in front of everyone else on the next page.
So are we putting Mr. Bass back into his original order?
He'll remain in the order he's in.
Okay, number 14.
Doesn't make a difference when we question him.
Okay.
He is
14.
number 14.
Okay.
Okay, so it looks like if they're going to be putting the jury over to the right behind the defendant, that they're probably going to change the camera. They're going to have to change where the camera's stationed or focused or whatever.
About and rebut the evidence being considered in this courtroom and to present argument with respect to that evidence. Non-court inquiries and investigations unfairly and improperly prevent the parties from having that opportunity our judicial system promises. Any juror who violates these restrictions jeopardizes the fairness of these proceedings, and a mistrial could result that would require the entire trial process to start over. A mistrial is a tremendous expense and inconvenience to the parties, the court, and the taxpayers. If you violate these rules, you may be held in contempt of court and face sanctions such as serving time in jail, paying a fine, or both. If you become aware of any violation of these instructions or any other instruction I give in this case, you must tell me by giving a note to the bailiff. I'm going to let you know that there's been some pretrial publicity regarding this case. So initially what we're going to do, I'm going to call up about 16 of you, and we're going to ask you whether or not you know anything about this case. I'll also ask you whether or not you have some sort of hardship about being here as jurors. This case is scheduled to take just 1 week, probably be done sometime on Friday, if not before that. Okay.
Just an FYI, this is a second group of jurors they're bringing in to split up and question.
Just have a seat, everyone. But I'll stand up and raise your right hands. The clerk's going to swear you in.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm to answer truthfully all questions asked of you as a prospective juror will be gotten?
Have a seat. I'm going to read to you a statement of facts regarding this case to give you some information about what it's about, okay? On June 2nd, 2023, on Southwest 107th Lane in Ocala, the decedent, Ajike Owens, went to the front door of Susan Lorincz, the defendant's residence, to address a concern Miss Owens had regarding Miss Owens' children. As a result of this encounter, the defendant discharged her firearm. The projectile traveled through the door and struck Miss Owens. Miss Owens died as a result of this gunshot wound. So I'm going to ask the first 4 people here, just raise your hand if the answer is yes to this question. Andrew Schultz, Richard, is it Rayon? Rayon, Carnisha Johnson, and Philippe Ingalls. Do any of you feel like you know anything about this case or you've heard anything about this case? Please raise your hand if you have. Okay, I have 3 names here. Ms. Schultz, do you have personal knowledge of this case or is this something you've read?
No, Your Honor, just something I've read.
Okay. Do you feel like you can set aside anything you've read and form a legal verdict in this case?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Mr. Ayum, do you have personal knowledge of this case or is it something you've read or seen on TV?
I also read about it.
Okay. Do you feel like you can set that aside and have a verdict in this case, a lawful verdict?
Yeah.
Yes or no?
Well, I'm kind of anti-gun, but other than that.
Okay. All right. Can you set aside whatever feelings you may have about being anti-gun and follow the law in this case?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Carnisha Johnson, you said you raised your hand.
Yes, sir.
Is this something you have personal knowledge of or you read or heard?
Read and heard.
Okay. Do you feel like you can set aside anything you've read or heard about this case?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Ms. Nichols, Mr. Nichols, you don't know anything about this case, is that correct?
Me?
No, I'm sorry, Mr. Ingalls, you don't know anything about this case, is that
I don't
correct?
know anything.
Okay. Sorry, look at the list here. Next person, Shelby Nichols, Diane Haynes, Diana Davila, Jacob Courtney. Correct. I apologize. Have any of you heard anything about this case? If so, raise your hand. See one hand, and that is Miss Haynes. Is that something you have personal knowledge of the case, or you've read or seen something on TV?
I've seen it on TV.
Okay, you can put your hand. Do you feel like you can set that aside and render a true verdict in this case? Okay, I appreciate that. The next, and no one else. The other 2 haven't heard anything about it, is that correct? All right, thank you. The next 4 people, Carolyn Davis, Florida-Lisa, Ferreria, Zachary Fairbrother, Mercedia Gorman. Have any of you heard anything about this case?
Yes.
Okay. I have 2 people, is that correct? And that is Miss Davis. Is that correct?
Yes.
Do you have any personal knowledge of the case or is this something you've read or heard about?
No, just read and heard about it.
Do you feel like you can set that aside and render a lawful verdict?
Probably not.
Okay, thank you. Who was the other one? Mr. Fairbrother?
Yes, sir.
Is it, you have personal knowledge of the case?
No, sir. Just read and heard about it.
Okay. Is that something you feel like you can set aside and render a verdict in this case?
I suppose, yeah.
You suppose?
Yeah,
Okay. Well, are you able to do that or not?
I mean, I guess not.
Well, why are we guessing?
No, sir, then I won't.
I mean, I'm not trying to give you a hard time,
Yeah,
but
no,
I just
no.
want, but listen to me for a second, okay?
Mhm.
I need to have your honest opinion. So
Mhm.
if you feel like you can't set it aside, fair enough.
I just formed my own opinion on it already. Is all I mean. So.
Okay, that's fair enough. All right, thank you. And anyone else on those 4? All right. The next 4 is Charlie Buchan, Timothy Thrush, Jennifer Paxton, Judy Plant, we got two people who work. I think I misread one. I got Buchan, Thrush, Paxton, and Plant, right? Of those four, have any of you heard anything about this case? And the first person is Mr. Thrush.
Yeah, right on it.
Okay. Have you, anything?
No, I've already got an opinion on it.
So you already have an opinion on it? Okay. Who was the next person? Yes, ma'am? What's your name?
Jennifer Paxton.
Okay,
I've just heard people talk about it.
okay. Do you have any personal knowledge of the case? You feel like you can cite anything you've heard and render a lawful verdict? All right, thank you. Ms. Plant, you haven't heard anything. Okay. Does anyone have any economic hardship about serving on a jury this week? Or you have some vacation that you planned already? Mr. Rayon?
Yes, my wife and I, we share one car. I live 40 minutes away, and she works, and she had to take the day off today because she has no way to get to work. And she works 3 more days this week, so I'm either gonna have to rent a car or
Okay.
difficult for us.
All right, we'll take it into consideration. Who else? And you are Mr. Ingalls.
Yes. I work on a farm with animals, and I'm the only animal caretaker. And they're 4 senior horses, and I gotta feed them the medication.
Okay.
They're hourly.
Do you own the horses?
No, I work for them.
Okay.
I wish they were mine.
Right. So they've hired you to take care of these things?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. But presumably they can take care of themselves.
Well, there's no one there to feed them. The owners are on vacation in New York.
They're gone?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you. Anyone else have some sort of economic hardship? All right. I'll have all of you, I'm just gonna have you sit back in the audience over there right now.
Confirm to answer truthfully all questions asked of you as a prospective juror, so help you God.
Let's see. All right, were all of you able to hear the fact pattern I read off? Everyone? Okay. I'm gonna do the same thing with you all. The first 4 people, Madison Goodwin, Lizette Torres, Karen Cherry, Victor Washington. Have any of you heard anything about this case? I see one hand. Is that Ms. Goodwin?
Yes.
Is it, do you have personal knowledge of the case, or you read or heard about it?
Read and heard.
Okay. Do you feel like you can set aside anything you've read or heard and then render a lawful verdict in this case?
No.
Okay. Everyone else, no one else heard about it, is that correct? Next one is Michael Moore, Daniel Canavan, Brian Daniels, Khalid Daly. Have any of you guys heard about the case?
Saw a brief minute up down the.
Hold on. That's okay. You're Michael Moore?
Yes, sir.
And do you have personal knowledge of the case, or you've read about it,
No,
heard
I
about it?
just remember it just flashed across TV the other day, but
Okay.
I don't watch regular TV much.
Okay. Anything you've heard or seen, can you set that aside and render a lawful verdict?
Can't think of anything.
Okay. So you could render a verdict?
You betcha.
Okay. Mr. Daly,
Yes, seen it on TV.
do you have any personal knowledge of the case? Anything you've seen or heard, can you set that aside and render a lawful verdict? Okay. Next one, Jonathan Collins, Tyler Runiger, Dylan Beatrice, Alva Fuller. Those 4. Anyone heard anything about this case? No one? Okay. The next one, Brunishar Ramdas. I apologize. Name pronunciation is always weak for me. Mr. Ramdas, Mr. Joshua Grant. Have any of you heard anything about this case? Okay. All right. So again, I'm going to have all of you people and all of you go outside the courtroom. Please don't discuss anything about the case. Just wait out there, and we'll call you back in a few minutes. Okay, yes, I'm sorry. Does anyone have a hardship they think will keep them from serving? All right, 1 second. Just have to go out. Going down the back road, anyone have a hardship? I understood yours. And what is your name, sir?
Daniel Kevin.
What is the hardship?
I've had a recent medical event that required multiple appointments this week.
Okay, what is your name again?
Daniel Kevin.
Okay. Medical hardship?
Yes.
Okay. Who else on the back row? Mr. Moore?
Your Honor, I forgot. Tomorrow, it's only, what time do you open up shop? What time do you gotta be here? Because I can be here before noon.
Well, no.
It's like
Can-
9:45, I got an hour's worth of work. Blood draw for next week's appointment.
Okay. So you have an appointment next week, you need to get your blood drawn
Yes,
this week sometime?
yes, sir.
Okay. All right, is that something you can reschedule at a different time?
I'll do my best.
Okay, all right. Anyone else on the back row have a hardship? Anyone in the front row have a hardship? What is your last name, sir?
Beatrice.
All right, Mr. Beatrice, what's the hardship?
I live in Jacksonville now.
You live in Jacksonville?
Yeah.
Has no one asked you if you lived in Marion County before?
I don't remember anyone asking me.
Okay. I think it's the first question they normally ask, but I wasn't down there.
Okay.
Have you not changed your driver's license?
No, not yet.
All right, you understand that it's against the law not to change your driver's license?
I did not know that.
Yeah, they can write you a ticket for that.
Okay.
So don't give them extra things to write you tickets for, okay?
Okay.
If you move, you have 10 days, I think, to change your driver's license. You can do it online. Okay? And that is Mr. Beatrice?
Yeah.
Okay. Who else? Mr. Rondas?
I'm the only one who will be on going through our chicken chambers,
You're the only one who's what?
working in the house.
Where do you work at?
I'm a trucker.
Okay. And, all right, so you're the main income of the house?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Grant?
I have an autoimmune disease called Graves, and I experienced a flare-up yesterday that I'm trying to get into my primary care physician to get steroid shots for, and I'm a solely commission-based salesman, missing a week of work means not being able to pay my rent, so.
Okay. All right, so you have medical hardship? All right, thank you. All go outside, okay? Anyone you want to bring back in for additional questions?
Yes, Your Honor.
Who is that?
Mr. Schultz.
Bring Mr. Schultz back in. Schultz, you had indicated, no, this is the front row right there. Thank you. You had indicated you had some knowledge of the case.
Yes, sir.
Can you tell us what you know about the case?
Pretty much just what was published in news outlets, kind of the facts of the case that you had mentioned. Nothing that I can recall really beyond that, though.
Have you formed any sort of opinion on the case?
No, sir.
You can set aside anything you've heard, render a verdict based on the evidence in the case?
Yes, sir.
Any additional questions?
No, sir.
Mr. Cronzo?
Any opinion regarding the guilt or innocence of the person who shot?
Not based on what I've seen, no.
Just not enough information.
Correct. Not
Okay.
No further questions, sir.
All right, thank you, sir. Yeah, thank you.
Ms. Johnson.
Have a seat in one of the two first chairs down there. Ms. Johnson, you indicated you had some knowledge of the case. Can you tell us what you know about the case?
A couple of Facebook posts, a couple of news articles.
Okay. Have you formed any opinion about what happened out there?
Kind of biased.
Okay. When you say biased, would you say you're biased towards one person or another in the case?
The facts that I read.
Okay. No, I appreciate that. So, Buxman, any question you want to ask?
No, sir.
No further questions.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. No, go outside with the jurors. Thank you. Ms. Paxton, we brought you back in because you indicated you had some knowledge of the case. Can you tell us what you know about the case?
All I know is, just from somebody, just basically what you read.
Okay, all right. Have you formed any opinion?
There was a dispute, somebody got mad at somebody else, dropped it to the door. The kids were maybe around too, that's,
Have you formed any opinion about the case at all?
I know, I haven't really read enough about it.
You feel like you can set aside anything you may have read and render a verdict based on just the evidence you see here?
Yeah, the only problem I would have with it is just because I'm a mother as well, so like the kids being there, that would be my only, I
Okay.
guess, issue with it.
All right. Do you feel like you can follow the law in the case?
Yes.
All right.
Would you be able to base whatever decision you make on the facts that you hear in this courtroom and not with newspaper or Facebook or something and sold you the facts? Thank you.
Good morning. The fact that you read that there were kids around, does that make you feel like you would be biased one way or the other?
Probably yes.
In what way?
I guess in favor of like protecting kids. Unfair that it happened, whatever happened, it happened in front of the kids.
And that bias would stay with you no matter what, the judge told you in regard to the law?
Yes.
Thank you, ma'am. You go back outside. Who's next?
Mr. Moore.
Bring in Mr. Moore. Mr. Moore. Have a seat, Mr. Moore. Mr. Moore, we called you back in because you indicated you had some, have a seat. You had some knowledge of the case. Can you tell us what you know about the case? We called you back in because you said you had some knowledge.
I
of the
saw
case.
it on TV for, I don't know, 10 seconds.
Okay. Can you set aside anything you heard and render a verdict based on the facts that you actually hear in court?
Yeah, because I haven't heard any facts about anything.
Okay. Have you formed any opinions about the case? Mr. Buxman?
No question, Your Honor.
Mr. Rosen?
Sir, from what you heard, any bias, anything that you heard?
Somebody shot somebody.
Okay, but any bias, any opinion regarding what happened, who's at fault, anything like that? Okay, thank you, Mr. Moore.
Thank you, sir. Go back
I thought I
outside.
was talking about that appointment. I gotta get on the phone. I know you left it in the car, because as soon as they don't bring them,
Okay, we'll take care of that.
I can get that done.
Okay.
He might talk too much to be on a jury.
All right.
That's it.
Anyone on this list you feel like should be removed for cause? Anybody?
Yes, we'll start off with, and this is just the last 30, Ms. Haynes. Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Daly, there was one more, Your Honor, I'm sorry, I missed it. Mr. Daly.
Step right to one of the two seats there, sir. Thank you. Mr. Daly, we brought you back in because you indicated you had some knowledge of the case. Can you tell us what you know about the case?
I believe that's the case where a fire was discharged on the door filling the mother.
Correct.
That was an argument over the Rose gates.
Right.
Yeah.
You have you formed any sort of opinion about what went on out there?
Yeah, I did. I recently moved out here, and that was like the first thing that happened, so it really stood out to me.
Okay.
You know, I was troubled by it. So
Do you feel like you can set aside anything you heard and render a verdict just based on the facts that you heard?
yes,
Okay. Where'd you move from?
New York.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Mr. Buxman, any questions you have?
Just
Mr. Bronson?
You said, Mr. Daly, you said you were troubled by it, right?
yes.
What do you mean by troubled by it?
Just it seemed unnecessary. Just like I mean, a mother being killed, over something that could have been avoided. The first thing I would want to call like the police before doing that.
So it sounds like you formed an opinion already. No, I'm asking you.
I mean, based on what I saw on CBS, but I know there's always more to this story.
But as you sit here, you already have an opinion regarding the guilt of the individual who shot through that door.
I've I wouldn't go that far, because I understand that I don't have all of the details of this.
Do you think you're biased a little bit in regard to the guilt of that individual?
I wouldn't say bias. No. Getting more so like misinformed at this point. Like I said, I just lack the knowledge of everything that happened in the case.
Okay, so you have no opinion at this point regarding that factual scenario that you heard about?
No.
I have any further questions?
All right, thank you. So you go back outside. All right. We'll see you, please. We'll go through the rest of these. All right, anyone else?
No, Your Honor, that's it in regard to.
So cause.
Yes, sir. Ms. Haynes,
No objection.
All right, that objection should be removed from cause.
Mr. Thrush,
No objection.
That objection be removed from cause.
yes, Your Honor.
Anyone else you want removed from cause?
Mr. Fairbrother,
No objection.
Be removed from cause.
yes, sir. Ms. Davis,
No objection.
Ms. Goodwin,
Hold on,
I'm sorry.
Davis be removed from cause.
Ms. Goodwin,
No objection.
Easier if we just go in order. Just randomly flopping around. It's good. It's okay. It's good to be removed from cause.
Ms. Johnson,
No objection.
Yes, sir. Anyone else?
Ms. Paxson. Thank you, Jim.
Nate?
No objection.
Who else?
And the gentleman we just spoke with, Mr. Davis, he said he was troubled by it because of the kids in the shopping cart.
That was Khalid Daly.
Yes, sir.
And I believe it right at the end, he says, no, I'm not biased, and I have not formed any opinion. I said, it's trouble, but I felt anybody could be troubled by a situation where someone loses their life. I don't remember him mentioning the kids specifically, he may have, but ultimately he said, no, I don't have any bias one way or the other, I'm misinformed, or I'm uninformed, he needs to have more information. I'll take a process for cause.
I think he started to say he had an opinion. You kind of leading question as, and then he backed off and said, I don't have an opinion. And he's not biased. So at least right now, I don't find him to talk. You can ask him some more questions as we go along. Obviously, Mr. Beatrice, he can't be on the jury. He doesn't live in Marion County, right?
That's correct. I don't believe that.
I'm sure they asked him. He probably wasn't paying attention. Anyone else?
That's it for causes. I know there's some financial hardship ones. I'm sure if you're wants to speak about those.
All right, go ahead.
What did you do with the?
Have we caused Beatrice? No objection, but
We have to take him off. He can't
Yes, sir.
legally be on the jury.
Just making sure.
Yeah.
And for financial hardships, Mr. Gant,
Mr.
No
Gant.
objection.
What was the one? What was his hardship?
he had a financial hardship and a.
Oh, he had a health issue.
The autoimmune.
Right, he was
Graves' disease.
Graves.
Clearing up.
right. He had a health issue that he had to deal with this week. Okay, so they were taken off for hardship. Who else?
Mr. Inglis. He's the gentleman that had a hardship about the computer courses.
Not a hardship. I mean, that may put his
No, I
other
feel-
people in problem, but that's,
Though I feel his pain, Your Honor, I can imagine that there might be someone else that can come and feed the horses.
I feel like I can find someone in Marion County to feed horses. So, I don't think it's a hardship. I mean, he's missing a job like everybody else, but, all right. Anyone else?
Mr. Ramdas, he has the financial, he's a trucker, he's the median income.
No objection.
Mr. Conovan, he has the one that has multiple appointments this week, he can't cancel.
Are we doing that before so long, right?
Oh,
Ramdas, there was no objection from the state.
No objection.
Conovan had multiple health issues this week, he said,
yes,
which apparently,
No objection.
Who was that one, Donovan?
Conovan.
Daniel Conovan, number 22. We're gonna take a look and see how many we got after this and see if we got enough to go.
And Mr. Ray.
No objection. Number 2.
Thank you.
So how many would that leave us with? Let's see. Anyone else?
No.
So 17 of this.
And 28 out of it.
What was that?
45.
45? That's 45. You want to do 45 and we'll start after lunch?
Yes, sir.
Okay. 1:15, is that good for everybody?
Yes, sir.
What was it?
Is that okay with your cook down? You guys are trying to drive the whole ship by lunch. I know, you're just a messenger. I know. All right. So I'm gonna tell, the people who are gonna stay are Schultz, Ingalls, Nichols, Davila,
Corinta.
Corinta, yeah, I know it's pronounced, Ferrarian, Gorman, Buckums, Plant, Torres, Cherry, Washington, Moore, Daniels, Collins, Leniger, Fuller, right? So I'm gonna instruct them to.
Did we strike Bailey?
No,
I didn't think so.
we didn't, because he had.
Yes, sir.
Back and forth, but
You
he
don't
said
mention
he didn't have an opinion.
You didn't mention he was staying, that's why I asked.
Oh, yeah, that's because you're right. I'd written something on, in Bailey. But I'll allow you some additional questions for Bailey
Yes, sir.
in that regard. Okay. All right. Let's bring everyone back in. I'll give everyone the good and bad news. Everyone from the first group, you're gonna stay with us. From the second group of people, if I read your name, that means you are going to go back down to the jury assembly room and we'll see if there's another case for you, okay? Everyone whose name is not read, we're going to give you a lunch break and then continue the questioning after lunch, okay? So if you hear your name, I want you to get up and go downstairs to the jury assembly room. Everybody understand? Richard Rion. Go ahead and go. Carlanisha Johnson. Diane Haynes. Carolyn Davis. Zachary Fairbrother. Timothy Thrush. Jennifer Paxson. Madison Goodwin. Daniel Conovan. Dylan Beatrice. So Beatrice, you can go back to Jacksonville, okay? If you don't live here, you can't be on a jury here.
Okay.
But you need to change your driver's license, okay? Mr. Ramdas. Joshua Gant. And Mr. Gant. Oh, all right, thank you. Anyone I missed? Okay. So for everyone else, we'll take a lunch break. Come back here at 1:15, okay? Please do not come directly into the courtroom. Just wait up in the hallway out there. We'll let you in as soon as we can, okay? But you're free to go wherever you want for lunch. There's some food trucks downstairs, I believe. There's some other vendor stuff in the building. Otherwise, you can go to some other restaurant close by, wherever you want to go, the time be, as long as you're back here by 1:15, okay? Please do not come directly in the courtroom, just wait out front. There you go. So we'll get her back in here before 1:15. Please don't let anyone in that little anteroom there inflict upon Ajike Owens will.
Okay, it looks like they're back from lunch and they're bringing in another. Okay, it looks like they are back from lunch and bringing in another bunch of jurors to question.
In violation of the applicable Florida statute. I'm also going to read you something that's equally important. The defendant has entered a plea of not guilty. This means you must presume or believe the defendant is innocent. The presumption stays with the defendant as to each material allegation in the information through each stage of the trial, unless it has been overcome by the evidence to the exclusion of and beyond a reasonable doubt. To overcome the defendant's presumption of innocence, the state has the burden of proving the crime with which the defendant is charged was committed, and the defendant is the person who committed the crime. Are you Mr. Rivera?
Yes, sir.
Okay. We'll move him down to the next row. Okay, just have a seat. Let me go back for a second. To overcome the defendant's presumption of innocence, the state has the burden of proving the crime with which the defendant is charged was committed, and the defendant is the person who committed the crime. The defendant is not required to present evidence or prove anything. Whenever the words reasonable doubt are used, you must consider the following. Proof beyond a reasonable doubt does not mean proof beyond all doubt. A reasonable doubt is not a mere possible doubt, a speculative, imaginary, or forced doubt. Such a doubt must not influence you to return a verdict of not guilty if you have an abiding conviction of guilt. On the other hand, if, after carefully considering comparing and weighing all the evidence, there is not an abiding conviction of guilt. Or if having a conviction, it is one which is not stable, or one which wavers and vacillates, then the charge is not proved beyond every reasonable doubt, and you must find the defendant not guilty because the doubt is reasonable. It is to the evidence introduced in this trial, it alone, that you are to look for that proof. A reasonable doubt as to the guilt of the defendant may arise from the evidence, conflict in the evidence, or lack of evidence. If you have a reasonable doubt, you should find the defendant not guilty. If you have no reasonable doubt, you should find the defendant guilty. Does everyone understand that the nature of criminal cases in this country, and it's the same throughout the entire country, based on our Constitution, that all of us are presumed innocent? Does everyone understand that? And that you keep that presumption unless the state can prove the case beyond and to the exclusion of every reasonable doubt. Does everyone understand that?
Yes.
Do you understand that in the end of the case, what you're really asked is, has the state proven the case beyond and to the exclusion of every reasonable doubt? You may have some unanswered questions. You may have some unanswered thoughts. But the only question you have to answer is, has the state proved the case beyond all reasonable doubt? Does everyone understand that? Does anyone feel like that should not be the case? That we should use some other standard in court cases? There's lots of countries in the world where people use different standards, believe it or not. Does anyone else believe that we should use a different standard? Okay. Well, all of you agree to that standard in this particular case? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. I know there's times when you're quiet and times when you're not. Also, I want you to understand that the nature of what jurors do is jurors find facts. I will provide the law to you. I will provide jury instructions to you. Every word that needs to be defined, I will give a definition to you. What you do is find facts. And once you determine those facts, you then apply the law to those facts. So this is not an opportunity for you to decide what the law is or what it should be. I will tell you what the law is. Your job is to find facts. Do all of you understand that?
Yes.
Okay. What I'm going to do is just go down the row with just some easy questions, starting with Mr. Cook. I'm going to ask you everyone the same easy questions, okay? Just give us your name. If you are married or have someone else you live with, let us know what he or she does for a living. Let us know what you do for a living. If you're retired, let us know what you used to do for a living. If you had some other job in the past, let us know what that is as well. If you have adult children who work outside the home, let us know what they do for a living. If you've been on a jury before, let us know that as well. The reason we want to know what you and your adult children do for a living is because certain occupations may bring you evidence or issues that may conflict with your ability to sit as a juror. In other words, if you're employed as a law enforcement officer, it may not be best for you to sit in a criminal case, or if your spouse is a law enforcement officer, it may not be best for you to sit in a criminal case. Or if you're doing something where you get a lot of information about cases or something along those lines. Other than that, we're happy with whatever jobs you do. But we do need to know these things go forward. If you forget one, I'll prompt you because I've asked this question a million times, so they're all in my head. But starting with Mr. Cook, please remember to speak out loud because we're trying to record this. You don't need to stand up though. Go ahead. Are you employed?
Yes.
What type of work do you do?
Air conditioning technician.
Okay. Do you live with someone
Yes,
married?
my wife.
What type of work does she do?
Restaurant manager.
Do you have adult children who work outside the home?
Not yet.
You seem disappointed in that. Have you been on a jury before?
No.
Thank you very much, sir. Mr. Barnes, same questions. Do you remember them? No. Okay. Are you employed?
Yes, sir.
What type of work do you do?
I'm a laborman on a block crew.
All right, do you live with someone married?
My mom.
Okay. And do you have adult children?
No.
Have you served on a jury before?
No.
Thank you. Joseph Pernice,
Yes, sir.
same questions.
My name will work now, sorry.
It's okay. Are you employed?
Yes, sir.
What type of work do you do?
I work at Publix.
And are you married? Have anyone you live with as an adult?
No, but I live with my parents.
Okay. Do you have adult children who work outside the home?
No, sir.
Have you been on a jury before?
No, sir.
Appreciate that. Nisha Fry.
I'm employed, I'm administrative manager at the library. I'm married, my husband is a DCF employee.
Okay. What does he do for DCF?
He's benefit issuance,
Okay. He doesn't do any sort of investigations of
Let's talk about the elephant in the room that no one has spoken about. You all have some cameras in this courtroom. And if chosen for this jury, there's gonna be cameras in this courtroom. Is there anyone here that is so uncomfortable with that? So uncomfortable with the media being here that you're like, I don't wanna be a part of this. I do not want to be a member of this jury. If the media's gonna be here, this is gonna be used. By show of hands, does anyone feel that?
1 second before you read. I want to let you know that the jurors will not be shown on the cameras. We've already instructed the cameras to not show jurors. Okay.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's what I'm, and names too as well, Your Honor, right? No names of jurors
No.
and no face. But regardless, the media will be here. Anyone here inherently uncomfortable with this? I don't want to be a part of this at all. Mr. Bass, thank you. Anyone else? All right, I appreciate your time. I appreciate your patience. I appreciate your openness with us. Thank you so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, all of you go outside the courtroom, okay? Those of you who are here need to take some note of where you're sitting. When you come back, you sit in the same spot, okay? There's no option to stay in. Everyone will have to go out if you're a potential juror. We'll let you back in as soon as we know what we're doing, okay? All right, so Lawrence is here. Lawrence, have you had a chance to discuss the potential jurors with your attorneys? Okay. So the first thing we do is go down and see if there's any additional cause challenges. Either side wants to raise a cause challenge, let me know.
yes, sir, we'll have that separate.
All right, go ahead. Give the reason.
Yes, sir. He basically said that if he, that he wouldn't be able to give him full consideration to, self-defense if the person didn't know whether or not the other person was on.
What's the state's position?
My position, I believe his answer was confined to a hypothetical with no facts whatsoever. And I think one of the things he specifically said was a person should wait to see if the person is armed, which I interpret that to mean that the danger needs to be imminent, which is what the law is. You know, if you're, the situation that these jurors are likely thinking of are two people staring at each other, one's armed, one's not, and the one person who's armed shoots the other person. And that's not the situation we have here. That situation wasn't fully explained, and at no time did he ever say he couldn't follow the law. So I think to box a juror into a hypothetical with no facts whatsoever surrounding it, and then ask him to commit to that situation, and then the person commits, and then they move for cause, I don't think that's appropriate, Judge.
I tried to clarify the situation so that we wouldn't have a situation where they thought just one person with a gun, one clearly without a gun. He did say that he would not give consideration to self-defense under similar circumstances in this case, so I'll strike him for cause. Who's next?
What was his last name?
Pernice.
Bernice.
Number 3.
Mr. Clayton and Mr. Bass, for the same reasons, with the addition of Mr. Bass, he said that as soon as, if there were any evidence of racial slurs, that he had this would be the case for him, as well as media involvement. So the defense would move to strike, Mr. Clayton and Mr. Bass.
What's the state's position on this?
No objection to Mr. Bass, juror number 14. And I have the same objection, the same argument about Mr. Clayton, but I understand the court's ruling.
All right, I'll strike Mr. Clayton for the same reason as Mr. Bernice.
The last one I have to file was Mr. Ruiz, said the same thing about not being able to give meaningful consideration for self-defense regarding the person being harmed.
Judge, I believe that's what he said. In light of the court's rulings on prior issues, I understand the court's issue.
All right, I'll strike Mr. Ruiz. All right, so anyone else, either side?
No, sir.
All right, so I'll go down the line for peremptories. I ask the state on any odd numbers and defense first on any even numbers. Christopher Cook, state?
Strike, Your Honor.
That's your first. Defense, Landon Barnes,
Accept.
state?
Accept.
Defense, Deshae Fry,
Accept.
state?
Accept.
State, Erica Johnson,
Accept.
defense?
Strike.
Judge, I would ask for a race-neutral reason.
All right.
And for the record, she is an African-American female.
All right. I do find that she is an African-American female. What is the reason for the strike?
Judge, there's multiple reasons. I'll begin with the fact that she said that she has heard about this case. One of the things that she said that was concerning to the defense is that she felt like it would be appropriate to use self-defense as long as I exhausted all other options to get out of danger. There is a specific part in the jury instruction that would say that Ms. Lawrence has no duty to retreat. So we have a concern about that. She also testified that she was a victim of a violent crime. So there's multiple reasons that we're looking to, that we're using like our preferences on her.
Was this like the attempted rape or something?
Yes, sir.
All right, I find the explanation is facially neutral, and I find it's not a pretext, so I'll allow the strike. This brings us down to Holly Thompson, state.
I got one more.
Sure.
Accept.
Defense,
Accept.
state, Christy Christmas.
Accept.
Defense,
Accept.
defense, Allison Bannerman.
Strike for judge.
That is your second. State, Blake Dunning.
Accept.
Defense,
Accept.
defense, Sherry Pruitt.
Strike.
That is your third. State, Gail Steiner.
Accept.
Defense,
Accept.
that's six. Everyone good with those six?
State will backstrike Barnes.
That is your second. That brings us down to Terry Mays. Defense?
May I have one moment, Judge?
Sure.
We're on Ms. May's strike.
You want to strike Ms. Mays?
Yes, sir.
That is your fourth. That brings us down to Laura Ewing. State?
Accept.
Defense?
Accept.
I think that brings us to six. Is that right?
State backstrikes Thompson, Your Honor.
third. That brings us to Christopher Little. Defense?
Except.
State?
Accept.
Okay. That brings us to 6. Anyone else that you changed your mind about?
Maybe I just want it.
Sure. You go with those 6?
Yes, sir.
State, you go with those 6?
Yes, sir. Accepts.
But now we need 2 alternates, right? We have, how many people left? 1. So if we have 2 alternates, you each have 2 alternate strikes. So anyone want to strike Karen Peterson as an alternate?
And one of Your Honor.
Yes.
Guess what?
Did you ask me if we are okay with keeping Ms. Peterson as an alternate?
No, I said, does anyone want to strike her as an alternate?
Oh, no, sorry.
Okay. So
The
state,
state accepts her as an alternate, Judge.
so you want to get one more alternate?
I think we're probably okay with the 1, Your Honor.
We're fine. You want to go with 1? What happens if we get down to 5? I mean, if 2 people leave. So,
Is there anyone that you would agree to be, Ms. Thompson?
I can bring up a few more people if you want to try to get more alternate.
I mean, I would think that any further questioning would go much more quickly because they all have heard everything. So if we want to bring in an extra
Yeah, I say
5 people or so, that would work.
I mean, we got one more alternate left. I don't want to restart number 1 alternate. So I would say,
Yes, sir.
I'll bring up, say, 4 people because you each have 2 alternate strikes, and we'll just.
That's fine.
I'll just let you go from there. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So what we have so far is Fry, Christmas, Dunning, Steiner, Ewing, is that one?
Yes.
And Little,
Yes, sir.
alternate Peterson.
Yes, sir.
So on Smith, those other people, then we'll go back to that jury assembly. Let's say we call up 4 people. We'll do it in groups of 4. Do you want to do that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do each have opportunity to question them, obviously. Yes, sir. Smith, the people who are down there in the jury room. People in the jury room. So, there's 159 people in the jury room. You want, okay, let them go, and we still have plenty here to get.
Yes, sir.
We'll let them go. And tell them when the other people get down there, they can let them go. Bring them all back in. Everyone make it back? All right. All right, if I read your name, that means you're going to stay with us. We're close to finishing up, and I appreciate everyone's patience, by the way. If I read your name, you're going to stay with us, okay? If you don't hear your name out of this group, you're going to go back down to the jury assembly, okay? So listen carefully. If you hear your name, please raise your hand. Nisha Fry. You here? Christy Christmas. Blake Dunning. Gail Steiner. Laura Ewing. Christopher Little. Karen Peterson. Everyone else, if you did not hear your name, go back down to the jury assembly room, okay? I'll remind all of you, you're still under oath from this morning, okay? You were all sworn in. You're still under oath, okay? Were all of you able to hear the information when I read it off and the definition of reasonable doubt? Does everyone hear that? Anyone need me to reread any of that? I see no hands. Okay. I'm going to start with Mr. Curry. Can you tell us, are you employed?
Retired.
What are you retired from, Mr. Curry?
Customer service.
Okay.
Look at the significant other who's also retired, no kids.
What type of, have you been on a jury before?
Yes,
Where was that?
Rhode Island.
And is there anything about your experience on a Rhode Island jury you think would interfere with you here? What type of case was it in Rhode Island? Do you remember?
Personal injury.
So a civil case. Okay, great, thank you. Wilson Cintron.
Yes, sir.
You're a teacher.
Yep, teacher. I'm married. My wife is also a teacher. We got 2 little girls, 5 and 2. What was it?
Have you ever been on a jury?
No.
Thank you. Hazel Holmes.
Yes, I am married. My husband is disabled. I have 3 children young. And then
What type of work do your children do?
one is a nurse. My other one works at the package counter, and my other one's bartender.
Okay. And were you working at one point?
I'm working at FedEx.
FedEx? Okay. Is that a yes? Okay. Have you ever been on a jury before?
No,
Thank you, I appreciate it. Namisa Ransola. Namisha, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I'm currently unemployed.
What type of work do you normally do?
So I'm a Jill of all trades. Hairdressing, human resources, clerical work.
Okay. Are you married? Do you live with anyone else?
I'm married. My husband is a retired postal worker.
Do you have any adult children who work
No
outside that?
children.
Have you been on a jury before?
No.
Do any of you have any friends, close friends, or family members who work in law enforcement? Okay, thank you. Mr. Blacksmith?
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. The good news is, since you are back here paying close attention to everything, this is going to go much more quickly. And that we're only talking to really the 4 of you in front, because the people that I'm tired of hearing. First, did everybody hear the list of witnesses that were read off earlier? Did anybody recognize any of those names? Does anybody know any of the attorneys in the court? Mr. Curry, is there anything about that past jury experience that just makes you not want to do this again?
No, not really.
Was it a decent experience for you?
It was unique.
Unique. I'm sure I'm going to go into that. Was it a short trial, long trial? Do you remember?
It was 3 days.
Were you the foreperson of the jury? Without telling me the verdict, was the jury able to reach a verdict?
Yes.
Thank you. Does anybody have any children still at home? And again, I'm talking to the four of you in front. Okay, Mr. Cintron?
Yep, 5
5 and 2, you said that, I'm sorry. Ms. Holmes?
I have a 23-year-old son.
Got it. Anyone work in the past or now in any kind of like a school setting, daycare setting, aftercare program where you're interacting with a lot of children? Yeah, obviously you're a teacher. What grade?
Middle school, all through 6, 7, 8.
How long have you been a teacher?
This will be my 2nd year.
You enjoyed it?
Yes, sir.
Excellent. Anybody else in the front row? Have anybody work in that type of a setting ever? Have any of the four of you, do any of you currently work from home? Okay. Have you ever worked from home, especially like during the COVID pandemic and things like that? It seems like most of the world was working from home. Mr. Curry, you're nodding your head over there. What type of job did you do when you worked at home?
Customer service.
And were there other people in the household while you were working, like were any children, spouse?
Yes, the spouse.
Okay. What did you do to kind of tune out those distractions and allow you to work at home and do your job?
She just basically made a separate room and she never even bothered me.
Okay. Did you find that difficult at all?
It was a little strange from working in an office for so long.
Did you like it? Okay. Why not? Besides the whole COVID pandemic thing.
People just started getting very obstinate and not nice.
Fair enough. Anybody else in the front row? Ladies, Ms. Hall, Ms. Rensola? No? Have any of the four of you ever lived or grown up in an apartment type style, a duplex or quadplex type situation? Okay, Mr. Cintron?
Back in college.
Dorm rooms, fraternity house type thing. Did you like that setting? Or are you the type of person who'd rather live on your 50-acre plot with nobody around?
At that time, because of the age, I liked it, to be well around everybody, but now, definitely 50 acres.
Okay. How about you, Ms. Holmes?
Growing up, no, I didn't like it.
You didn't like it for that reason? Because it was too many people or?
Well, in the household, yes, but at the time of the building, no, there was a lot of people.
Do any of the four of you in the second row have an alarm system, security cameras, anything like that? So I'm going to start with Mr. Curry. If you do, okay. Is that something that you installed yourself or
Yeah.
did it come with the house when you bought it?
No, just motion detectors, motion lights.
Was there something that prompted you to put those motion sensor cameras in, like something happened, or just you wanted them for security or other reasons?
Well, one night, I heard something on the front stairs. It was a coyote. So I put a motion out there to scare them off.
Okay. Does it work?
Mhm.
Okay. Mr. Cintron, what about you?
Just security. My 2 little girls just want to be able to know, like, when the packages are being delivered, anyone's walking around the house, and things like that.
No event prompted you, nothing bad happened that prompted you to put the cameras in there? Okay, thank you. Ms. Holmes, what about you?
No.
You don't have any kind of alarm system?
No,
Any reason why?
I live out in the woods.
Understood. All right, and Ms. Rensola, what about you?
No, we live in a gated community, so I don't think there's a need for it.
Okay, fair enough. Who here owns firearms? Okay, ladies, no firearms there. Okay, Mr. Mr. Curry, why do you own firearms?
Owned firearms since I was 16 years old, hunting, recreational.
How are they kept in your house?
Missing,
Always?
except when I'm going to the.
Of course. Thank you. Mr. Cintron, what about you?
Recreational hunting and self-defense.
And how are they stored in your house?
I have a few in the safe, and then I have a smaller safe by my nightstand.
So more readily accessible in case needed?
Just for me, but it's still in the safe because of the girls.
Okay. And Ms. Holmes, is there a reason you don't? Are you concerned about them, don't like guns?
I just don't like them.
Okay. Is there any kind of a reason that something happened that made you not like them, or?
No, I just don't.
Fair enough. And Ms. Renzola, same questions to you.
I never had any, have you done?
Do you think that there should be restrictions on who can possess firearms? Ms. Holmes, what do you think?
I think in your age and your medical, stuff like that.
Okay. And what about people who are felons? Should they?
No, they shouldn't. Depend on the nature of the crime that they did in the past or however.
Okay. What about you, Ms. Renzola? What are your thoughts? Sure. Do you think that firearms should be regulated? There should be some limitations on who can possess and own firearms.
Hassle question, then you're able on the person.
Okay. How about you, Mr. Cintron? What do you think?
Other than, if they're a felon or they have some sort of like Alzheimer's or mental illness, no regulation.
Mr. Curry, same thoughts?
Same exact thoughts.
Does anybody here think that there shouldn't be any regulations on firearms and anybody should be able to possess it? That's your God-given right, Second Amendment right to have a gun regardless. Anyone have a concealed weapons permit? Does anyone here think that you should be required to have a concealed weapons permit before a person is able just to walk around society with a gun? Okay. You're nodding your head, Mr. Cintron. Why do you think that should be the case?
Just so at least have some sort of proper training before, using a weapon in public. Because there are situations, fight mode kind of thing. You should be able to run through some training like that to be able to feel it. I mean, you are holding a weapon.
Mr. Curry, you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay, what about you, Ms. Holmes?
I agree.
Ms. Renzola?
I agree.
Has anyone ever had the situation where you were forced to pull your gun and point it at somebody to protect yourself or somebody else? No? Nobody? Anyone have any military experience? Anybody have any construction experience? Remember my example about 2 o'clock in the morning, we hear a noise, my wife jumps up, she's got the gun running around the house, I'm sound asleep. What type of person do you think you would be, Mr. Curry? What do you think?
Analytical, trying to figure out what it is, before jump to conclusions.
What about you, Mr. Cintron?
Well, if it's a big noise that like it sounds like maybe like a window or a door breaking, I will grab my gun from the nightstand, my wife will grab hers, and she'll have my bag, and we'll try to reach to my girls because they're across the house.
Has anything like that ever happened to you?
No, sir.
Okay, what about you, Mr. Curry? Anything like that ever happened to you?
No.
Ms. Holmes?
No.
How would you describe yourself as would you be more of a reactionary, emotionally driven person, or would you be more analytical, thinking, well, this is what it sounded like, this is where I know the dog is, those kind of things?
I'd be more action to see what it was, how it was.
What about you, Ms. Renzola?
I would elbow my husband and I would, depend, I guess I would become curious, I would want to assess what's going on.
Have any of the four of you ever been in a situation where you have been afraid for your own safety or the safety of a close friend or a loved one nearby? Mr. Curry, you're shaking your head now. Mr.
Just recent.
Sorry, Mr. Sintra, I forgot like your name.
Just recently, we were down in Miami, Sawgrass Mall, and someone hit the alarm activated. It was like a siren. They were evacuating the whole mall because there was a threat of a gun. Luckily, it ended up being fake, but being in that situation with my family, my girls, my mom, my wife, it was, concerning.
What did you do when you first heard that there was a potential threat?
We just started evacuating.
Follow the threat?
Found my girls, my wife held one, I held another one, and we just started rushing out, looking around, making sure nothing dangerous.
What was going through your mind?
Protect my girls at all costs.
Did you ever like see anybody in the mall like with something that looked like a gun, or was the threat someplace in a different place?
We didn't know. The siren just went off, and it was like an automatic alarm, like police had to score out, leave the nearest exit kind of thing. So we just kept walking until we were completely out.
I assumed you were not armed at the time.
No.
Miss Holmes, what about you? Ever have been in that type of situation?
No.
And what about you, Miss Ronsall? Anyone here have either yourself or a close friend or family member been the victim of a crime? A substantial crime, something. Yes, sir, Mr. Simpson.
My brothers-in-law.
What happened?
It was before I met them, and they don't talk much about it, but I know he was arrested. I think he was the driver. I'm not I don't know what exactly it was. It was a lot of house arrest, that's all.
Okay.
And he was a minor.
Based on what little you know about it, was that person treated fairly by the system, by the police, things like that?
Mhm.
Would that affect your decision in this case in any way selected?
No, sir.
Anybody else in that front row here? Yes, sir, Mr. Curry.
House breaks. I had 3 of them.
In Marion County?
No, it was up north.
Okay. Did the police respond to those break-ins?
Yes.
Do you feel that the police did due diligence in their investigation and do what they're supposed to do? Is it yes?
Yes.
Does that experience or do those experiences, would that affect your decision in this case in any way if selected as a juror?
No.
Ms. Holmes, anything like that? Okay. Ms. Rensola, I'm messing up your name, I'm sorry, Rensola.
No.
I'm not sure, it's been a long day. I'm not sure if Judge Hodges asked, do any of you have friends or family member in law enforcement? Can each of you listen to a law enforcement officer's testimony and weigh that officer's credibility just like you would anybody else?
Yes.
Have any of the 4 of you been involved in any kind of a neighborhood dispute or a neighbor dispute with somebody? Curry, nothing? Nobody?
Nope.
Mr. Curry, how do you handle a conflict with somebody? It could be any kind of conflict, verbal, physical, anything like that.
Talk about it first, try to diffuse the situation. And if you can't, try to, I don't want to say retreat, but, just take it upon yourself to back off and diffuse it.
How about you, Mr. Simpson? What do you think?
Exactly what he said. Talk it on, nothing solved, just kind of walk away, be the bigger person, and why increase the conflict?
Ms. Holmes?
I agree with that.
And Ms. Ransola. I'm going to get it right eventually.
It's easier than the first name. I guess talk it out. See what can be worked out.
Does everyone understand that there are times where a person is permitted to act in self-defense and to use force against somebody if they're using force against you?
Yes.
Everyone agree with that concept?
Yes.
Before you before a person uses some kind of acts in self-defense and uses some force against somebody, do you think the threat of harm should be imminent? Mr. Curry, you said yes. Why?
If you're standing there in front of me with a gun or a knife or something, that's imminent danger. If you're coming at me with a vehicle, that's imminent danger. Other than that, there's no need for excessive force.
Would you be able to listen to all the facts and circumstances? Let's assume that self-defense becomes an issue in this case. Would you be able to listen to all the facts and circumstances that are provided to you and only then come to a decision as far as whether a threat was imminent and the use of force was justified?
Yes.
Do you think the decision to use force against somebody to defend the person, to defend yourself, should be reasonable?
Yes.
How do you define reasonable? What would go into your determination as far as the reasonableness in that decision? Does that make sense?
If they have a gun, you have a gun, that's reasonable. If they have a knife, you have a gun or whatever.
Would it be important to assess the facts and circumstances of the situation before you? And do those facts and circumstances kind of dictate what is reasonable in the situation? Mr. Citron, what do you think? Do you agree with the things Mr. Curry said?
I do. Self-defense, at the end of the day, it is your right, but you have to assess what you're going to use for self-defense as well. There's a lot of barriers that you can do before you can draw a weapon. Just protect yourself.
Is it important to assess the imminence or the immediacy of the threat?
Yeah.
Does that go into the reasonableness of a person's decision?
Yes.
Ms. Holmes, what do you think? Do you agree with what Mr. Curry and
Yes.
anything else to add?
No.
Okay. How about you, Ms. Renstoll? I just want to try it one last time.
Yes, I agree.
Did all of you hear about my poor 98-year-old grandmother? The speech during her death. If you felt beyond a reasonable doubt that my grandmother was guilty of speeding, could each of you find her guilty, even though it was only a couple miles over and she's 98 and she's 98? And basically, my question is, would you be able to follow the law, even if you may not have liked, may not like it?
Yes.
Do you feel everybody should be held accountable for their own actions?
Yes.
Thank you so much for your time, everybody.
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, almost evening. It is 4:45 PM. Please no rotten tomatoes thrown at me. I am going to try to go as quickly as I can through this. You were all here back there when I spoke to the first panel about there being no right answers, there being no wrong answers, only honest answers, okay? And it doesn't matter what people think, it matters what is in your heart, what is in your soul, what is in your core. So just be open and let's talk, all right? Presumption of innocence. Everyone understands here that as Susan Lorincz sits there, she is presumed innocent. Anyone have a problem with that? No. Can everyone follow that by show of hands? Okay, very good. Everyone heard that the state has the burden of proof. They have to prove this case beyond and to the exclusion of each and every single reasonable doubt. Everyone understands that? Show of hands. Does anyone have an inherent problem with this? Like, that's not fair. I don't like it. Okay. Everyone heard the reasonable doubt definition. I read it once. The judge read it once. Did everyone hear about the locked door situation? Everyone remembers that example that I gave. Does anyone here, has that happened to anyone here where you leave your house and you don't remember whether your door is locked or not? Show of hands. That's happened to all of you? Okay. Mr. Curry, is that reasonable to, even though You always lock your door before you leave, I'm assuming?
Correct.
And that's standard operating procedure for you, correct?
Yes.
So that doubt in your mind, whether you lock the door or not, it's a little doubt, tiny little doubt, right?
Correct.
Is that doubt, even though it's small, even though it's tiny, is it reasonable?
Yes.
And why is it reasonable?
You're always gonna think about it.
Okay, even though it's small, even though it's tiny, it's still a reasonable doubt?
Yes.
Okay. Does anyone disagree with Mr. Curry? All right. Ms. Lawrence is charged with manslaughter. Very heavy charge. Anyone here believes, for whatever reason, your experience, your life, things that you've been through, who here doesn't believe they're the right person for this case by show of hands? The deceased, her family will probably be present throughout these proceedings. Is there anyone here that would be uncomfortable finding Ms. Lawrence, if the state can't prove their case, is there anyone here that would be uncomfortable finding Ms. Lawrence not guilty of this charge just because the family may be present for the trial and for the verdict? Would anyone have a problem with that? Show of hands. An autopsy was performed on the deceased, medical examination by a pathologist after death. There will be pictures of the autopsy and pictures of the deceased after she passed, and members of the jury are going to see several pictures of that. There's some people that those pictures make them inherently uncomfortable. They want nothing to do with it. Is there anyone here, you four, that would have a problem with seeing these autopsy photos at all? Ms. Lawrence has the Fifth Amendment right to remain silent. Should you be picked for this jury and Ms. Lawrence does not take the stand, she has the right to remain silent, and that silence cannot be used against her. We all know that's the law. We all know that all of you are going to try your best and do everything you can to follow the law. However, Mr. Curry, if Ms. Lawrence doesn't take the stand, will you be able to not use that silence against her?
Probably be.
Can I ask a triple negative?
Sorry, was it triple? Sorry, it's late. It's late, sorry. Let me rephrase that. If chosen for this jury and Ms. Lawrence does not take the stand, would you be able to follow the law and not use that silence against her?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Cintron?
Yes, sir.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Ms. Ransella? Did I pronounce that correctly?
Yes.
Okay. Should she take the stand? Mr. Curry, would you automatically not believe a word that she says only because she's the defendant in this case? Mr. Cintron? Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Ms. Ransella?
No.
Anyone here a member of any pro-gun groups, like the NRA, things of that nature? No? Anyone a member of any anti-gun groups? Anyone here believes that guns should be outlawed completely, that the Second Amendment shouldn't exist? Anyone here has a strong belief in the right to bear arms? By show of hands. Okay, let's get to self-defense. And Mr. Luxman was asking you questions about that. Mr. Curry, Mr. Buckman asked you about imminent danger. What is imminent danger in your mind?
In my mind, if you cannot get away, you cannot get away. I won't say immediately, but if you're not back off in 10 minutes, if somebody's right in your face or somebody's pointing a weapon at you or something, that's imminent danger.
How about if you don't know if they have a weapon or not? can that still be imminent danger? Whether you, if you're unsure if they have a weapon.
You have to find out what the other person is thinking. Like, if me and you are like this here, you're not in any danger,
Why are I in danger?
because I do not feel any danger from you.
Okay. What, if you don't know whether I have a weapon or not, what would make you believe in your heart, in your soul, in your core that I am in imminent danger towards you?
You would have to show me some sort of aggressive towards me.
Like what?
Coming at me with weapon or, you know, something like that there.
Any
Baseball bat, shovel.
And if you don't know whether I, for instance, have any type of weapon on me, then you wouldn't believe it would be imminent danger at all in any circumstance?
If I can't see or no.
If you don't know if someone is armed or not, would you still be able to give meaningful consideration to a defense of self-defense?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Central,
Yes, sir.
same question.
Which one? Sorry.
What would you consider imminent danger?
Anyone that's willing to give bodily harm to someone.
Okay, does it matter whether the person is armed or not? Does it matter, if you know whether the person is armed or not?
No.
Would you be able to give meaningful consideration to the defense of self-defense if you don't know if a person is armed or not?
Yes.
And why is that?
You don't have to be harmed to hurt me, you know, and you can be, let's say, if you're right there and then you're coming after me, my first thing is like, hey, back off, I'll give you warnings, and if you continue to come at me, then I'm gonna be threatened.
Regardless if you know whether they're armed or not.
Yeah, I mean, they can still punch me or push me, and I can hit my head and go on the ground, get a concussion,
Or unbeknownst to you, they could be armed.
They can be armed.
Is that reasonable? Ms. Holmes, what are your thoughts in regard to what I was speaking to Mr. Citron about?
Yes.
Does a person have to be armed in order for you to feel that there's imminent danger?
No,
And why is that?
you can be talking to me aggressively, coming at me, being enraged yourself, hit me, punch me, knock me down.
Could you give meaningful consideration to the defense of self-defense, whether the person is armed or not? Ms. Ransom, same question to you.
Define imminent danger?
I'm sorry?
Can you define imminent danger?
Sure, imminent danger, in other words, it's about to happen. You are in imminent danger. What are your thoughts about that?
Depends on what frame of mind I'm in.
Okay. And what do you mean by that?
If I'm, calm.
Okay.
Depends on how I'm going to react, if I'm calm or if I'm not calm.
Okay. And how does that play a factor? Whether you're calm or not calm?
I was startled, or if I knew something was happening or about to happen.
In order to feel that you're in imminent danger, does a person have to be armed or can they not be armed?
Armed is obvious.
How about if you don't know if they're armed or not armed?
That's not a situation, I don't know. I don't know how I would do that.
If you don't know if the person is armed or not armed, what would make you feel that you're in imminent danger? What type of circumstances?
I have no idea.
Sorry?
I have no idea what would put me in that situation and how I would react.
Have you ever been in a situation where you felt like you were in danger?
No.
Have you ever been in a situation where you have seen someone that may be in danger? If if an individual is, if you don't know if an individual is armed or not armed, or if an individual doesn't know whether the other individual is armed or not armed, could you still give meaningful consideration to the defense of self-defense?
The bottom line, if I have to defend myself, yes, I would defend myself.
Whether you knew if the person was armed or not armed.
We go back to the same thing. If they're armed, it's obvious. If they're not armed, I don't know.
Okay, but would you be able to give meaningful consideration to the defense of self-defense if in a situation that you don't know if the person is armed or not armed? You're not sure. You're not sure, okay. You may hear racial slurs if a member of this jury. You four, is there anyone here that would be so offended by racial slurs or so bothered by racial slurs that you're like, I don't want to be part of this case. I don't want to hear any of that stuff. By show of hands. No? As I spoke with the other group, if selected for this jury, at the end of the trial, you will go to the jury deliberation room where everyone in the jury will deliberate together. Everyone has different personalities. Some people are more extroverted, some people are more introverted. Some people are more passionate and loud about their opinions. Some people are more within themselves about their opinions. It's fine how you are. It's what makes the world interesting and to live in, because people have different personalities. However, what's important in deliberating is that everyone respect each other and everyone have common courtesy. Does everyone agree with that? Show of hands. Does everyone, by show of hands, does everyone here, you four, promise everyone in this courtroom that should you be chosen for this jury, that you will be respectful towards each other and common courtesy towards each other when deliberating? Show of hands. And by the show of hands, should, for whatever reason, an individual not abide by those rules, not be respectful, not be considerate of each other when deliberating, that you will let the bailiff and the court know that something's going wrong in that deliberating room and people aren't being respectful. Show of hands. All right. Last thing, elephant in the room, cameras. There's going to be cameras throughout these proceedings. As the judge mentioned, the media will not state your names. If chosen for the jury, will not show your faces, etc. However, there are individuals that because media is going to be involved, because the media is going to be here, are inherently uncomfortable and don't want to be a part of it. That happens sometimes, and that's fine. We just need to know, is there anyone here that would be uncomfortable knowing that the media is here for all the proceedings? Show of hands. Your Honor, may I have a moment?
Yes, sir.
Appreciate your time. It's 5 o'clock exactly, so no Rotten Tomatoes from me. Thank you very much.
All right. Same drill as last time. All of you are going to go out. I'll be back in. All right. Go back on the record. We're off. So. Okay, we're still down to alternates. First, also, we have one alternate, Karen Peterson. Any objection? Does anyone want to use an alternate strike on Michael Curry?
No, sir, say accepts.
That's your first alternate strike. How about defense Wilson Centron?
Strike.
That's your second alternate strike. State Hazel Holmes.
Accept.
Any reason not to take Ms. Holmes? All right. So, all right. If I read your name, that means you're going to be on the jury, okay? So listen carefully. Yishay Fry. Kathy Christmas. Blake Dunning. Gail Steiner. Lori Ewing. Christopher Little. Karen Peterson. And Hazel Holmes. Okay? So if you didn't hear your name right there, I should go into the audience. Ladies and gentlemen, you're taking, you can all raise your right hands again. You're gonna take a different oath.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that you will well and truly try the issues between the state of Florida and the defendant, whom you shall have in charge, and render a true verdict according to the law and evidence to help you God?
I'll have you go with the bailiff right here. She's gonna get some information from you, and I'll have you back out here. I'll let you go before too long, okay? The goal was to get you out of here by 9 o'clock, so we beat the goal by 4 hours. If I just set the goal high enough, you'll be happy either way. Right? Ladies and gentlemen, you are going to be excused, and I'll let you go home. I want to tell you though, I do appreciate you coming here to serve as jurors. We've used jurors for well over 200 years in this country, and that's probably the best system they have to decide cases. By showing up here, you have solved literally hundreds of cases. So what we need for people to solve cases, people show up as jurors and do their duty as citizens of the United States. My thanks, you're excused. You no longer have jury duty this week. Have a very nice day. Have a very nice week.
Love you, Judge.
Figured it would be Mr. Moore. So I'm going to bring them out here and explain to them to meet at the police department at 8:30. We'll get ready here at 5. That gives us no right spot. Tell them where to meet. Explain to them that, hey, it's a homicide case. Parking is tricky here at the courthouse. That way I know they're here and ready to go. And then,
Warn them about media.
Huh?
Warn them about media.
Right, yeah.
What time do we start in the morning, Judge?
Excuse me?
We start at 9.
9, please. So I'll read the preliminary instructions. If there's any objection to the preliminary instructions, let me know before 9, okay?
Judge, did you warn them not to read anything in the media? Was that in your preliminary instructions?
That is in the original instructions, but I'll remind them again. You want to read it? It's in big fonts. So you can see it. The problem is you've heard it so many times that it just goes over your head. I'm just going to give you a few instructions, then I'll let you go home, okay? Just a general understanding of court. When you're as a juror, you guys are going to kind of move as one from here on out till the end of the case, okay? So, and that's fine. You'll get used to that. But if you need something, if you need a break at any time during the trial, just let me know. But when we take a break, everyone takes a break at the same time. Then we all come back at the same time. So there's never a situation where part of you are one place and part of you are another place. That's going to include coming and going from the courthouse. Because this is a manslaughter case, and I don't want you to get messed up with parking or traffic or anything else. What I'm going to do is have you park in the morning, no later than 8:30 at the Ocala Police Department. That's right down the street here. I think it's like 402, something like that. 402 South Pine Avenue. Just a couple blocks to the south of us on Pine Avenue. Does everyone know where the Ocala Police Department is? Okay. So park there in the morning and look to the as you start to go into the Ocala Police Department. You don't need to go inside. There'll be a white van there for you. That van is going to take you to the courthouse, and then we'll bring you up through our elevators here. Okay. So like I said, from now on, you're a group of 8 right now. Okay. So, and then at the end of the day, we'll take you right back to your cars. Okay. We'll provide lunch for you each day. I don't know if you've already given them the menu for tomorrow. Remember, my bailiff is not a waitress. So she'll take the order, but if there's a problem with the order, we'll try to get it straightened out. Please don't take it out on Tracy here. You don't need to bring anything with you to write or write on. We'll provide you notepads to write on and pencils to write with, okay? If you want to bring some sort of drink with you in the courtroom, just bring water. That's the only thing that we allow in here. And it's got to be on something that can be sealed. In other words, we don't want people spilling water all over the place. But if you feel like you need water, just bring whatever you want in some sort of sealed container. We usually have coffee for you in the morning, but otherwise we'll just sit here and listen to testimony uninterrupted. Yes, ma'am.
Just to double check, you said be at the police department at 8:30?
8:30, please.
Okay.
Yes. And if you don't know how to get there, I'll let them know. They'll tell you how to get there. Okay. I want to remind you that you are now clearly under the rule of not getting any information about this case. You can use your computers and phones, and you can watch TV, but you can't use any of those things to look up any information about the case. Okay. If you see a headline or something, please don't read the article. If something, I know these days things flash on our phones all the time. Try to delete it as quickly as you can without reading it. Okay. Please don't discuss the case with anybody. Typically, your family's going to say, "Well, what's the case about?" And you tell them, "Hey, I can't really discuss it with you. I'll be happy to talk all about it when the case is over." The reason we do that is we don't want someone to say something to you. We don't want them to say, "Well, I heard from so-and-so, this fact." We want you to remain exactly as you are now, which is you don't know anything about the case. So you can't discuss it with them. Please, if someone comes up to you in any way, please tell them you're on the jury and that you can't discuss the case with them. I don't think that normally will happen, but if someone does discuss it with you, please tell them you're on the jury and you can't discuss it with them. Please don't discuss it with anybody else. If you're in the courthouse and you see any of the attorneys here, I want you to know that they're under a very strict rule to pretend that you don't exist. They can't acknowledge you. They can't hold the door for you, say hello, anything else. They're not being rude. They're simply following the rules, okay? That way, nobody interferes with you at all. We try cases here the same way that we have tried them in this country for well over 200 years. All the information you need will be given to you in the courtroom. The definitions you need will be given to you in the courtroom. Please do not look up even the smallest word, okay? Please, there is nothing online that is worth you getting held in contempt of court for, okay? Not a single thing. So we're all going to pretend like it's back in the 1980s. We don't have the internet. We don't have anything else. We're just going to come to court and listen to evidence. So your phones, while you're in court, obviously they need to be off. If you're on a break, you can, call somebody when you're on a break, but you can't discuss the case with them at all, okay? And you can't look up any pictures or maps or locations or anything like that. When you deliberate at the end of the case, you can't have your phones at all. It's going to be just like the 1980s. You're going to remember what it's like to be for a few hours without your phone. So if you have some sort of emergency situation, we can take a call for you if you want. Just let us know and we can give you a number that you can call. Otherwise, you'll be without your phones during deliberations. Just so you understand, it's in the rules I read to you tomorrow. But when you're on a jury, you can't begin to deliberate the case until the very end of the trial. After you heard all the evidence, all the arguments, all the instructions by the court. So when you go back to the jury room, although you're all together, you can't discuss the case. You can't discuss what you just saw. You can't discuss what you just heard in any way. You've got to wait all of that until the very end. When you take notes, your notes will stay with you here. You won't take your notes with you till the very end. Okay? So with that, I want to wish you a good night. We'll see you tomorrow morning at 8:30. Yes, ma'am.
For our work, is there something that we can provide to them showing that we are selected?
Yes, ma'am. You can get that. You probably need to get that. I need to get that for you. It comes from the juror clerk who's not here right now. Yeah.
Okay.
Remind us, whoever needs something for work, let me know, and we'll get your name and we'll have the clerk's office get something for you as to what days you're here. Okay.
Okay.
Anyone needs that, let me know. All right. And so you go with Mail here. She'll take you out. Have a very nice day, everybody.
Okay, that's it for the day. I wanted to make a quick note. I had said earlier that I thought, based upon my research, that they only needed 6 jurors. And I think that's true. They only needed 6 jurors. However, I believe they have 2 alternates in this case, as he did state that there were 6 of them. Something I noticed really quick. I was looking up her case online. I wanted to read this to you guys that I saw. It says, during an interview on June the 5th of 2023, Marion County Sheriff Woods stated they would have to reconsider Florida's stand your ground law before making any arrest and had primarily only heard from the accused and were still working on contacting and interviewing Owens' children. After conducting interviews and reviewing surveillance footage and digital evidence, the police arrested the accused, Susan Lorincz, a 58-year-old white insurance agent from Marion County, on June the 7th of 2023, and charged her with manslaughter with a firearm, culpable negligence, which has been dropped, battery, which has been dropped, and 2 counts of assault, which one of those has now been dropped. On the matter of whether Florida stand your ground law applied, Sheriff Billy Woods said in a press conference that this situation is a prime example of when it is not justified. It was simply a killing. On June the 6th, a little over 30 protesters, so this was before she was arrested, gathered outside the Marion County Judicial Center to demand the arrest of the accused shooter. Chief Prosecutor and State Attorney William Gladson met with the protesters and urged them to be calm, indicating that the investigation was still ongoing and they did not want to compromise it. In the aftermath of the shooting, many proponents and family members of Owens called for a reevaluation of the stand your ground rules, along with potential clarification on the rule. A law professor at William and Mary Law School indicated when asked that she was concerned that there was a widespread misunderstanding of the rule and that it had turned into a shoot first, think later belief by some. That is so true, y'all. That stand your ground law is the wackiest thing ever. A GoFundMe page was set up by the Owens family after the shooting, indicating that they had partnered with national advocate groups to promote change of stand your ground laws. Well, that's good. Okay. In a statement from the family of Owens, her mother, Pamela Dias, stated that the child standing next to Davis when she died was consumed with grief and guilt that he was unable to perform CPR on Owens. According to Diaz, I don't know, I guess that's Diaz or Diaz. Diaz, probably Diaz. It's D-I-A-S. The child told her grandmother, I couldn't save her. Oh, heartbreaking. Her own child standing there watching her go. So I don't know. I just want to throw that in there. And I will see you guys back tomorrow. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, please do not forget to like and subscribe on your way out. And feel free to leave a comment. Have a blessed day.